The Honorable, the Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen. Amen. Namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, I have received communication from the following. The Honorable Shamfa Kojo MP, member for Tobago West, who has requested leave of absence for the period June 24th to July 6, 2019, and from Dr. Fuad Khan, MP, member for Barataria Sanwan, who has requested leave of absence for the period June 26 to 30th, 2019. The leave which the members seek is granted.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the following papers. 1. The audited financial statements of InvestTT for financial year ended September 30th, 2018. 2 to 8, the audited consolidated, well, yes, very good. The consolidated audited financial statements of the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited for the financial years ended December 31st, 2009 to 2015. Hallelujah. I beg to move that papers 1 to 8 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers 1 to 8 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the Immigration Amendment to the Second Schedule Order 2019.
Reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Opuch East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, to the Honorable Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, could the Minister state the reasons why naval clearance and approval was given to the Russian Navy sea tanker named Kama to enter and berth in the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago?
Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Embassy of the Russian Federation in Georgetown, Guyana, requested the approval of the Trinidad and Tobago authorities for the Russian mid-sized tanker, Kama, to enter the port of Spain for the purposes of replenishing the vessel's stock and to rest the vessel's personnel. Madam Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago routinely receives requests from other countries to traverse its territorial waters or to dock at the port for various reasons. The request of the Russian embassy is therefore not unusual. Madam Speaker, we frequently receive requests for permission from countries such as the United States of America, Canada, and Colombia, for various reasons, for their vessels registered to those countries to dock at the Port of Spain. And this administration has no problem or no issue in granting such requests.
Supplemental, Member for Puchis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Could the Minister indicate whether or not this development could compromise the government's stated position of neutrality vis-à-vis the global positioning on the conflict and crisis in Venezuela?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is somewhat disheartening to come here every week, sometimes on multiple days of the week, and to hear the opposition attack the sovereignty of Trinidad and Tobago, and to continue with their mischief, Madam Speaker. It in absolutely no way compromises Trinidad and Tobago's protected international and global positioning, and one of mutual respect that I'm sure we continue to maintain with the vast majority, if not all, of the countries in the world, despite the continued attempts by those on the other side to paint Trinidad and Tobago in the most negative light. It is continued mischief on their part.
Member for Puch East.
Speaker, I apologize to the member if I dishearten him. And I can. Is the Minister aware that the Karma vessel is a support vessel for higher level naval warships and equipment?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the Minister of National Security, we granted our non-objection to this vessel being docked here. And I will tell the country here today through you, Madam Speaker, just today, as the Minister of National Security and as the Acting Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, we indicated to the United States of America that a naval vessel that they wish to dock here in Trinidad and Tobago in September is more than welcome to dock here at our port down in La Brea for them to provide hospital services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have, as I said earlier, we welcome all of these countries for their vessels to enter Trinidad and Tobago unless there is some reason, compelling reason, why we shouldn't, and that has not yet arisen.
Questions on notice. Questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we will be answering questions 230, 232, 234, 235, 236, 238, and 239. We're asking for a deferral of 240 and 179.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 232 to the Minister of Tourism.
Minister of Tourism.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with respect to Part A of the answer, in keeping with the objective of the Tobago Jazz Festival to attract visitors to the island, a free concert entitled Jazz on the Waterfront was held at the Scarborough Esplanade. It was hosted at a cost of $174,410 TT dollars. Many persons attended the event, and the concert offered patrons the opportunity to view performances by over 30 local artists. With respect to Part 2, the performers, Tony Braxton and Michael Bolton, were secured by the THA at a total cost of $375,000 US, which was inclusive of travel, shipping, ground transportation, and accommodation. Tony Braxton was accompanied by 20 band members at a cost of $225,000 United States dollars, and Michael Bolton was secured at a cost of $150,000 US and was accompanied by 15 band members. The length of the performances was in keeping with industry standards and were for a minimum of 1 hour. With respect to Part C, visitor arrivals over the period April 25th, 2019 to April 28, 2019 totaled 11,130 persons. With respect to Part D, over the period of the Jazz Festival, April 25th to 28, additional seating capacity provided on the domestic air bridge was 3,456 seats. Caribbean Airlines has advised that the total cost to wet lease an additional aircraft to service the Tobago Air Bridge over the period was $217,000 US, or approximately $1,473,000 TT dollars. The revenue generated by Caribbean Airlines from visitor arrivals to Tobago during the period was in the order of $2 million TT dollars, which does not include revenue generated by hotels, restaurants, and other service providers in Tobago. With respect to Part E, with regard to the Tobago Jazz Festival, the Division of Tourism, Culture, and Transportation of the THA has advised that ticket sales are still being tabulated and are expected to be completed shortly. An exit survey of the Tobago Jazz Festival was conducted by the Division of Finance and the Economy of the THA, and the findings of that survey will be made available upon completion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Just to advise members that shortly, while the minister was giving his response, a member emitted a sound maybe in surprise, which sounded somewhat like a whistle. And just for the further guidance, whistling will not be tolerated in this House. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 230 to the Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago have advised that from a logistical standpoint, it is extremely difficult to ascertain the statistics requested by the honourable member, as such matters fall under a broad category of sexual offences, and these matters are not disaggregated in the subcategory requested by the honourable member. Notwithstanding this difficulty, Madam Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has indicated that the prosecutions of the perpetrators for such cases are made increasingly difficult due to inaccurate and erroneous reporting by minors of alleged sexual offences.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Acting Attorney General, could you inform this House if there's any collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the law enforcement agencies? Because from the point of view of pregnancies and so on, individuals may be, well, not may, they have to seek medical care.
Member, it's a question. You had 15 seconds to ask the question.
Yes, Madam Speaker. As I said, is there any collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the law enforcement agencies to bring the attention of cases from a judicial point of view?
Madam Speaker, in the context of the whole of government approach taken by this government, and if only on the basis of common sense and history, the answer clearly is yes.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Oropouche West, question number 234 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago appointed an investigator to investigate the procurement of the automated passport kiosk by the Airport Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Justice Rolston Nelson, Senior Counsel. The investigation is currently ongoing.
Supplemental.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, could you state what is the time frame for that investigation or that report by the esteemed Justice Rolston Nelson to be completed?
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, as we had indicated when we told the nation about the investigation, we've asked Mr. Justice Nelson to complete his investigation within the period of 2 months. No request has been made for any extension.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Oropouche West, question number 235 to the Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm advised that no legal action has been taken by Nuvo. Attorneys representing Nuvo Technology Corporation Limited have served a pre-action protocol letter on the state in connection with the government's decision to investigate the facts and circumstances surrounding the award of the contract by the Airport Authority of Trinidad and Tobago to Nuvo Technology Incorporation Limited for the delivery of the automated passport kiosk and e-gate system. I thank you.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Oropouche West, question number 236 to the Minister of Communications.
Minister of Communication.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with respect to the quantum of government subsidy to Trinidad and Tobago Television Limited, TTT, for the period since its launch of the 30th of August 2018 to the 30th of April 2019, the total subvention was $12.1 million. With respect to the revenues generated by TTT, exclusive of the government subsidy, from the 30th of August 2018 to the 30th of April 2019, the total revenue generated for that period, which comprises airtime, production, transmitter rental, interactive media, and contra, is 10.5 million TT dollars. With respect to the value of the monthly rental arrangement between the National Lotteries Control Board and TTT, the production and airtime agreement with NLCB is at a monthly value of $450,000. With respect to whether the Water and Sewerage Authority is a sponsor of any TTT programming, it does not sponsor any programming on TTT.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 238 to the Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the honourable member. Anand Ram Logan was appointed as the Attorney General 26th of May 2010, assigned the responsibility of managing only the Ministry of the Attorney General. I was appointed on September 9th, 2015, and assigned two ministries, Attorney General and Legal Affairs, and absorbed the large part of the Ministry of Justice, 3 ministries in total. The appropriation bills, supplementary appropriation bills, variation of appropriation bills for the published period of those bills 2010 to 2018 give precise budgetary figures and close off of accounts for all ministries per year. Together with cross-checks at the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, we have revealed the following. Under the UNC administration, the combined expenditure for the period 2010 to 2015, inclusive of Attorney General, Ministry of Legal Affairs, and Ministry of Justice, was $4.585 billion. Under the UNC administration, the expenditure for the period 2010 to 2015, inclusive for the Ministry of the Attorney General only, was $1.222 billion. Under the present government, the combined expenditure for the period 2015 to 2019 for the combined ministries of Attorney General and Legal Affairs and the absorbed Ministry of Justice all together is $1.014 billion. Let me repeat that. Combined UNC cost $4.58 billion, combined PNM cost $1.01 billion. Materially, under the UNC administration, the expenditure on legal fees at the Ministry of the Attorney General was $444 million odd dollars. It's 444,444,197. That's nearly $500 million. Accumulated debts left behind on top of that for this administration to pay was $137,128,742. Of course, that is against the whole of UNC administration cost of $1.6 billion. Under the present government and under the present Attorney General, legal fees have been $224,297,888.48, And this figure of 224 odd million includes 140,544,281.74 spent by the DPP. It also includes 83,753,606,074 spent on legal fees applied to liquidate arrears. Year-on-year comparison at the Ministry of the Attorney General under the UNC shows an average cost for one ministry only of 104,588,832.32, whilst under this government, for the combined costs of legal affairs, Attorney General, absorbed Ministry of Justice, DPP's expenditure included, and liquidating arrears left by the last administration, we are 42.3% lower in expenditure year on year on average. I'd like to add that the Attorney General's office has conducted a comprehensive value for money audit on all legal fees and expenditure and has referred several matters to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Office of the DPP for consideration, and such action as may consider in their respective constitutionally independent offices as appropriate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We have heard a lot of that same before. Let me ask the question. Can I ask the question on question 239 and maybe subsequently that the Honorable Attorney General stick to the time period? The question really
Member. Yes, Attorney General.
That was a supplemental. We've gone to 239?
Yes.
So no supplementals?
No supplemental.
I see. Thank you. I would be surprised if there were supplementals in light of that answer. God help them. In response to question 239, Madam Speaker, I'm able to say the total amount expended by the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau for the period 2015 to April 30th, 2019 is $6,418,171.76.
I've been advised that the response to question 240 is now available. Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much. And following on the heels of 239, question 240 to the Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Thank you. This is a materially important question to be answered, particularly in light of question 238. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau has confirmed the following in response to question 240. The total number of persons charged between 2015 and 2019, the total number of persons charged were, in terms of charges laid, 1,093 persons were charged. The breakdown is as follows. 2015 to 2016, in fact, there were 0 prosecutions and 0 convictions. But in 2017, 144 charges laid, 2 charged, 0 convictions. In 2018, 939 charges of money laundering laid, 1 person convicted. In 2019, 10 charges laid and 0 convictions. I might add, having passed the Attorney General's office, having passed the ACIB over to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, what is important to note in this regard is that some of these money laundering charges include past senior members of the United National Congress, including a former Attorney General and also a former senator sitting in this Republican Parliament, the 11th Republican Parliament. So contrary to the exhortations coming from Naparima in particular, the ACIB is doing phenomenally well on tracking down high-level corruption, including corruption amongst politicians.
Member for Naparima, do you have a supplemental? Yes.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance, statements by ministers, personal explanation, introduction of bills, the miscellaneous provisions, pensions bill 2019 in the name of the Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In accordance with Standing Order 64 1B, I beg to move that the next stage of the Miscellaneous Provisions Pensions Bill 2019 be taken later in the proceedings.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stage of the Miscellaneous Provisions Pensions Bill 2019 be taken later in the proceedings. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister. Public Business Committee business motions.
Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that this House adopt the report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of threatening words. I beg to move. Oh, start. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I would like to start this afternoon's presentation with a very important constitutional concept, and a concept, Madam Speaker, that seems to be lost on some in this House. Madam Speaker, one of the most important concepts in our Constitution, the written Constitution that we have, is that of separation of powers. And as a parliamentarian, I took great pride in September 2015 on entering this House as an elected member with a legal background and an understanding of the independence of the Parliament. You see, Madam Speaker, every member of the Parliament, the 41 elected members of the Parliament, it is my respectful submission, should all be prepared to stand for the independence of Parliament and to ensure that Parliament appreciates and everyone appreciates the separation of powers with respect to Parliament. Madam Speaker, when you refer to Section 56(1) of our Constitution, the supreme law of Trinidad and Tobago, Section 56(1) of the Constitution states, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, each House may regulate its own procedure. That simple sentence, Madam Speaker, is of the most importance with respect to our Parliament. And what it means to the population of Trinidad and Tobago is that we Parliament, we parliamentarians, are the masters of our own process and procedures, provided that they go in accordance with the principles of law. And as per the Constitution, I also draw reference, Madam Speaker, to Section 55(3) of the Constitution. Section 55(3) says, in other respects, the powers, privileges, and immunities of the House, of each House, and of the members and committees of each House shall be as such as may from time to time be prescribed by Parliament. So in the Constitution, Madam Speaker, where all law flows from, it is recognized in entrenched provisions of the Constitution that Parliament dictates its own processes and procedures. And we are the ones who will prescribe our own processes and procedures, Madam Speaker. I go on, Madam Speaker. One of the most important principles in the separation of powers must be, as I've just read from the written Constitution, that Parliament will regulate its own procedures. Madam Speaker, with the greatest of respect, the Court has very little room to interfere in parliamentary procedures, and we must jealously guard Parliament from unjustified external interference. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I place on the record that traditionally, and it continues to today, the Parliament and the judiciary have a very good, respectful relationship. So let that not be a worry. I will also use this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to add that prior to becoming a parliamentarian, and maybe when I was acting as an opposition senator for one of them, I had the experience of acting as attorney at law for 2 leaders of opposition that were brought before parliamentary privileges committees. And I would like to say that the current Prime Minister, who was then the leader of the opposition, was one of those, and then former Prime Minister Patrick Manning was the other. And at no time whatsoever as the legal advisor to those 2 gentlemen did we ever look to trample, stomp, or interfere with the powers, the sovereignty, and the procedures of Parliament. As responsible attorneys, we advised our clients that there is a strict line, a clear line, between the powers of the court and the judiciary and the powers of Parliament, and that line should not be blurred. You see, Madam Speaker, it bothers me tremendously as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, first and foremostly, and secondly, as a representative for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, to see the consistent attacks on independent institutions in this country and the consistent attempts by some in our society, and in particular by some in this House, to attack and water down the independence of some of our institutions. And the worst type of attack, an internal attack on the Parliament by a parliamentarian to encourage an interference, an unconstitutional interference on the powers of the Parliament to regulate its own procedures. And what it shows to me, Madam Speaker, with the greatest of respect, and I stand here unafraid of being contradicted, is that there is absolutely no respect by some who yearn for power, no respect for independent institutions in Trinidad and Tobago. And there is a determined attack on these institutions. And I stand here today, Madam Speaker, and say that those on this side, the 23 members on this side of the House, as has been our proud history as a PNM government and as a PNM opposition in the past, and as a continuing PNM government, will always rise to protect the independence of the Parliament and the independent institutions in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, history of Trinidad and Tobago shows in the clearest possible terms that there has been no attack on the independence of institutions by any PNM administration. Madam Speaker, members cannot abuse the constitutional privilege of protection of freedom of speech given to them. And I turn now to Section 60, Standing Order 55, 4B, if you would permit me. Sorry, to Standing Order 92 to start. Standing Order 92 talks about the Committee of Privileges, Madam Speaker, and this is our procedure with respect to the Committee of Privileges. It says that the Committee of Privileges shall have the duty of considering and reporting on any matter referred to it by the Speaker or the House in accordance with Standing Order 32, Privilege Matters, Standing Order 55, Order in the House and in Committee. It shall be the duty of the committee to consider any matter so referred and to report thereon to the House. Subsection 2 says the Speaker shall be a member and the chairman of the Committee of Privileges. You see, Madam Speaker, I haven't gotten there as yet. You see, Madam Speaker, what we did as a parliament in determining on our own procedures is come up with standing orders. And the experience and the wisdom of the parliamentarians is that you, Madam Speaker, or whomsoever is privileged enough to sit in the seat of Speaker, shall, as of right, not only be a member of the Privileges Committee, but will be the chairman of the Privileges Committee. And respectfully, the policy behind that, Madam Speaker, must have been that parliamentarians trust the Speaker to lead us in these proceedings, not only as we sit here in the House, but in one of the most serious committees that we have formed, and it is a tradition, the Parliamentary Committee of Privileges. And subsection 3 goes on to say that the Committee of Privileges shall consist of 6 members, inclusive of the chairman. So by definition, Madam Speaker, what we have determined as our own procedure is, in addition to yourself as chairman, there must be 5 members who comprise the Committee of Privileges. I then turn to Standing Order number 32, Madam Speaker. And Standing Order number 32, which is on privilege matters, then tells us how we must proceed with respect to privilege matters, and it sets out the time frame, and it sets out various things that determine and dictate the privileges. You see, Madam Speaker, members of Parliament are given the right of freedom of expression. However, as with everything, there is a line of reasonableness, and there is a line that we must not cross, or lines that we must not cross. And having said that, if we cross those lines, then we must come to our peers, subject ourselves to our peers, and have it determined whether we have in fact crossed such a line, and what sanctions, if any, must be put on us. And turning then to Standing Order number 55, 4B. Standing Order number 55 is about order in the House and committee. And this is the standing order, Madam Speaker, that governs our behavior in the chamber. This is the standing order that dictates and sets out how we must behave when we have the privilege of serving in this chamber. It talks about gross disorder. And subsection 4 talks about conduct shall be deemed to be grossly disorderly if during proceedings the member concerned, and I go to B, uses or threatens violence against a member or other person. So you see, Madam Speaker, we as parliamentarians have determined our own rules, our own procedures, our own parameters of behavior. And one of them that we've stated clearly in black and white, that we must not infringe and that we must not cross the line on, is none of us must use threatening. We must not use or threaten violence against another member or person whilst we have the privilege to serve here. So, Madam Speaker, having stated the composition, having stated how a Committee of Privileges works, and what the mandate of the Committee of Privileges is, I turn now to the facts before us. Madam Speaker, on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, the fifth and final day of budget debate, the Minister of Finance commenced his reply amidst much of the usual desk thumping and occasional crosstalks. As you are aware, Madam Speaker, those who sit furthest from your ear do engage in more than the usual banter, which often causes you to rise and appeal for silence. And so when the member for Oropuch East uttered words in crosstalk directed at the member for Laventille West, the records show that you did not hear what was uttered. However, Madam Speaker, the picture painted by the Hansard records provide invaluable assistance to your committee. It reveals that the words uttered by the member for Oropuch East were not mere taunts, was not mere peacock, was not mere teasing, but were so menacing and abominable that they brought the member for Laventille West immediately to his feet, interrupting the House. Madam Speaker, what were those offending words? And I quote, "That is why snake have some lead for you," unquote. Not surprisingly, Madam Speaker, on Tuesday, October 16, 2018, the Leader of the House moved a privilege motion alleging that the member for Oropuch East committed contempt of the House when he uttered those words, in that they were threatening words and caused the House and its proceedings to suffer ridicule and public odium. On Friday, November 2nd, 2018, in accordance with Standing Order 32-4, the Speaker of the House ruled that a prima facie case had been made out and referred the matter to the Committee of Privileges for consideration and report. Madam Speaker, that was over 8 months ago. Your committee has since reported, and that report is what is now before this Honourable House for adoption. Madam Speaker, the outset of the first meetings of your committee, Mrs. Camille Robinson-Regis and Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, members, recused themselves from participating in this matter. Subsequently, in keeping with the established practice of this House on November 30th, 2018, Dr. Nian Gatsby-Dolly and Mr. Anthony Garcia were temporarily appointed to serve in their stead for this matter only, and we take this opportunity now to thank them for their service, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you might find it quite shocking to learn that the basis of so-called constitutional claim filed in the High Court by the member for Oropuch East, who attempted to move the heavens and the earth to stop the committee and by extension this House from considering this question of contempt, I submit, Madam Speaker, that for any member, one of us, one with a duty to uphold the powers, privileges, and immunities of this House that I quoted a short while ago, and to seek to restrain this House from claiming a privilege critical to the effective discharge of the functions of this House, is, in my respectful view and opinion, a contempt of this House, but we'll speak about that more later on, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, also at our first meeting on Friday, November 30th, 2018, your committee discussed our mandate, procedure, composition, and work plan. In accordance with the practice of committees of privileges, your committee agreed that as an essential first step, the member for Oropouche East should be given an opportunity to be heard in response to the allegation made against him, a principle that was adhered to throughout our proceedings as a committee. Not surprisingly, Madam Speaker, on Tuesday, October 16, 2018, the Leader of the House moved a motion, I must point out, Madam Speaker, that throughout the deliberations of this committee, under your stewardship and your wisdom as chairman, procedures that can withstand public scrutiny were adhered to, and the work of the committee was conducted at all times in a professional and non-partisan manner. A second meeting was scheduled for January 7, 2019, and the member for Oropouche East was invited once again to be heard, accompanied by two of his advisors of choosing, in keeping with the established procedure and practice of this committee. However, the member declined the opportunity to then be heard, indicating that he had concerns regarding the legality of the appointments and the constitution of your committee. He undertook to provide written submissions outlining his concerns. By then, Madam Speaker, the writing was on the proverbial wall. Why do I say this? For the following reasons. Although points of procedure were discussed and settled at the first meeting, two members of your committee prolonged the in-camera start on the 7th of January meeting on this matter by raising questions and challenging research presented to the committee by the legal unit of Parliament. This committee was informed that an attorney at law, a total stranger to this House, had sent what we call in local parlance lawyers' letters to the committee, asking for responses to long-winded, convoluted, muddled questions, which revealed that someone had begun misdirecting the member for Oropouche East, or maybe, Madam Speaker, something even more sinister. Of course, Madam Speaker, your committee hopes that by now that stranger has found the time to read up on the law of Parliament and follow what is accepted as parliamentary procedures and processes. On the 29th of January, the member of Oropouche East sent his written submissions outlining his concerns. They were directed to you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker of the House, in your capacity as chairman of the Committee of Privileges, and rightly so, because they raise points of practice and procedure. Essentially, the member expressed the view that, A, at the time the matter was referred, the committee had not yet been appointed. B, the committee was improperly constituted, since you, ma'am, and by extension the House, have no power to appoint temporary members to serve on the committee. C, the member for Laventille West ought not to serve on the committee in relation to another matter referred, because he will likely hold a bias against the member for Oropouche East. Madam Speaker, as Speaker, in accordance with your duties under the standing orders, you responded to the member's submissions. Copies of the response sent to the member through the office of the Clerk of the House were circulated to all of us. Therefore, at the meeting scheduled for Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, the member for Oropouche East was once again invited and was provided an opportunity to be heard. However, while the committee met, there was no appearance by or hearing from the member for Oropouche East for the reasons explained as follows. Madam Speaker, on Monday, the 4th of February 2019, the member filed a constitutional motion against the Attorney General under Section 14 of the Constitution, supported by his affidavit, together with a notice of application for interim relief and a certificate of urgency at the High Court in San Fernando. claiming that the Committee of Privileges as constituted infringed his constitutional rights to a fair hearing, challenging the authority of the court to appoint.
I stand on order 48, standing order 48-2, the matter, and 49 as well. The matter is before the courts. It's sub judice. The matter has not been concluded, and it is an active proceeding. So I stand on that order.
Member for Caroni East. Under 48-2 and 49, I consider this matter to be a matter which qualifies under 49(1)(e). It's clearly a matter of general public importance, and I'm also satisfied that this is a matter that is solely the province of this House. I therefore overrule your objection. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, all we're referring to, and their nervousness is once again misdirected, is the constitutional relief being sought. So he's challenging the authority of the House to appoint temporary or substitute members to a committee, and C, seeking an injunction against the committee continuing hearings into the matter referred to it by the House of Representatives until the determination of this matter before the court. Madam Speaker, the matter was heard on the morning of February 5th, 2019. Around 8 a.m. on the same February 5th, Madam Speaker, one Gerald Ramdeen, familiar name, I think he was once a UNC senator, dropped off a bundle of documents in the Parliament's mailroom and asked that it be passed to the Speaker's office. And at that time, he would have been a serving member in the Parliament. Madam Speaker, the entire country now knows that is how you were made aware that a matter touching and concerning the hard-fought-for privileges of this House was being heard in the High Court in San Fernando that said morning, including an application for interim relief to injunct us as a committee from proceeding. Madam Speaker, with the greatest of respect, this method of service, particularly by a former member of Parliament, is wholly unacceptable and shows the typical disrespect for office and institution by those on the other side. But Madam Speaker, the law and the custom of Parliament states that you are the one who speaks for this House. It is you, Madam Speaker, who is a representative of this House in its relations to other persons and authorities outside of this House. And it is you, ma'am, who have the ultimate duty to guard the rights and privileges and immunities of this House. Although I respectfully submit that all of us in this House have a duty in that regard. And I add, Madam Speaker, that those on this side, this PNM, also pledge to protect the offices and institutions of Trinidad and Tobago, including this Parliament, against any such attacks. So with only a cursory glance of the documents dropped off in this most unusual and disrespectful manner to this Parliament, you caused counsel to appear amicus and said that morning before the High Court in San Fernando and gave an undertaking to the court that hearings into the matter referred to the Committee of Privileges in relation to the member for Oropouche East would be adjourned until the hearing of the application or such further order. Madam Speaker, many may not understand the weight of that undertaking, but right-thinking persons do. Persons who appreciate the importance of strong, independent institutions and the significance of the separation of powers doctrine. This undertaking, Madam Speaker, was given on the basis that the matter would be dealt with expeditiously. But of course, as facts show, the litigant never intended to have his matter heard in court in an expeditious manner. At our meeting on Tuesday, February 5th, the agenda was altered to defer the hearing into the matter.
I stand on 49-3. The members in his comments are creating a substantial danger of prejudice to the fair determination of that matter, which is before the court.
Okay, so member for Caroni East, I don't have a standing order 49-3 in my standing orders. Please proceed.
At our meeting on Tuesday, the 5th of February, 2019,
member and member I overrule. 1C. I overrule.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the agenda at our meeting on February 5th, 2019 was altered to defer the hearing into the matter, given the undertaking referred to above. At this meeting, the committee endorsed the undertaking given by the Speaker and agreed to submit an interim report to the House on the matter referred and related issues. Once again, a protection of proper procedure by your committee, Madam Speaker. In due course, the Speaker of the House was joined as an interested party in the matter before the court. Madam Speaker, as a consequence, the committee put its work aside while awaiting the consideration by the court of the claim and its accompanying urgent application. It is therefore important to place on the record of this House the timeline of the members' actions in court. By notice of reassignment dated the 3rd of April 2019, the parties were informed that the matter was reassigned to Madam Justice Wilson from Madam Justice Quinlan Williams, who had recused herself. During April 2019, counsel for the Speaker of the House communicated with attorneys for the claimant, the member for Oropouche East, proposing early dates for the hearing of the matter, bearing in mind that an undertaking had been given on the basis that the matter would proceed expeditiously, and the Committee of Privileges was unable to complete its work. Madam Speaker, by way of correspondence from the court, the parties were advised of the fixing of a directions hearing on May 3rd, 2019, as well as the availability of May 7th, 8th, and 9th as possible dates for trial. However, the claimant advised that none of those dates identified for trial was convenient and suggested no alternative dates. Madam Speaker, this is clear evidence that the member for Oropouche East was not interested in having his matter determined expeditiously and was acting in bad faith. On the 3rd of May 2019, counsel for the claimant didn't appear. Counsel holding in the matter sought an adjournment and requested that the court keep the undertaking given on February 5th in place for 1 week. Madam Justice Wilson directed that the undertaking remain in place for 1 week to allow parties time to discuss and agree a way forward. The claimant's counsel, Madam Speaker, was a delaying tactic or one of no interest whatsoever in proceeding. This is how those on the other side treat institutions, with scant regard and complete disrespect. Counsel appearing
Under 48.6 is imputing improper motives against members on this side.
Overrule.
Thank you very much. Counsel appearing on behalf of the Speaker submitted to the court that in the circumstances, unless the matter could be dealt with expeditiously, the undertaking given on February 5th, 2019 would be withdrawn. You see, Madam Speaker, claimant has a duty when approaching the court and telling the court by filing a certificate of urgency to get on with his matter, not to employ delaying tactics in an attempt clothed with disrespect of not having his matter heard. The parties having failed to come to an agreement, the matter was fixed for hearing on the 10th of May 2019 to deal with the application for interim injunction and any other applications. However, not surprisingly, the injunction application was not heard, and the entire day was spent on other applications made by counsel for the claimant, more of the same behavior. Madam Justice Wilson then proposed June 17th and July 8th as possible dates for hearing the matter. Not surprisingly, Madam Speaker, counsel for the claimant chose the latter date of July 8th. Madam Speaker and members of the House and the population of Trinidad and Tobago, do you see any urgency in the members' conduct? I know what I see, Madam Speaker. I see a member boldly abusing the court's process in a shameless effort to escape having to account to this House for his conduct.
The gentleman is exercising
his rights in the court.
Okay, so in here we call each other either the honorable member or the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. But I understand what you mean, member for Naparima. Member for Pointe-à-Pierre, I do recognize you on my left, okay? And not somewhere behind me, on my left. Overrule, member for Naparima. Please continue, Port of Spain North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, by this time we had crossed 3 months since the member for Urupuch East first ran to the court for shelter, claiming abuse of his rights, and despite all efforts by the court and by the respondents to hear his matter urgently, he seemed unconcerned. There appeared to be no urgency whatsoever on his part to pursue his application for injunctive relief or to have the court determine the substantive claim. As a result of the foregoing, Madam Speaker, the undertaking given on February 5, 2019 was withdrawn before the court on May 10, 2019, in the presence of counsel of all parties, for all parties in the matter. Counsel for the Speaker reiterated that the undertaking of the Speaker had been withdrawn and that it was open to the Committee of Privileges to deal with the matter before it. Madam Speaker, you had to protect the Parliament and our process, and I thank you for so doing. Given that the undertaking given on the February 5th, 2019 was withdrawn before the court on May 10th, 2019, a meeting of the committee scheduled to continue with the examination of the matter proceeded and was scheduled for June 17, 2019 at 1:30 p.m. This was almost now 1 month after the undertaking was lifted, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Urupuch East was again invited to be heard and to respond to the allegations made against him. The letter of invitation was sent to him on June 12, 2019. On every occasion, the member for Urupuch East was given an opportunity to be heard. The final meeting, Madam Speaker. Your committee held its 4th meeting on Monday, June 17, 2019. By correspondence before the meeting, the chairman provided us with an update on the constitutional matter filed, including the fact that the undertaking was withdrawn. Members were therefore satisfied that with the removal of the self-imposed restriction, there was no bar to us proceeding with the work assigned to us by this Honourable House. Just before the start of the meeting on that day, ma'am, at 12:34 p.m. to be exact, the member for Urupuch East informed the secretary of your committee that he was unable to attend the meeting due to the fact that his advisors were otherwise engaged, and requested that your committee adjourn its meeting and extend to him a timely notice for another delay. At no time, Madam Speaker, was a member for Urupuch East interested in defending himself before the committee. During the week, your committee deliberated on a number of issues. During the meeting, Madam Speaker, we took careful note of the following facts. A, this allegation referred to your committee occurred on October 10, 2018, 8 months before. There's a duty to dispatch with matters involving the privileges of the House expeditiously. B, in addition to the express privileges enjoyed by the House of Representatives under the Constitution as a legislative body, in common with all legislators, it is invested with such privileges as are necessarily incidental to its existence and the functions it's called upon to perform. C, it is the House of Representatives only that has the duty to investigate complaints of breaches of privileges of this House, a duty critical to our existence. D, as the guardian of the rights and privileges of the House, the Speaker's undertaking to the court given in pursuance of the Committee of Relations between the legislature and the judiciary ought not to have been subject to dilatory tactics on the part of the member for Urupuch East. E, your committee's duty remained as mandated to consider matters on your behalf and report on such matters before the end of each session. And F, the member for Urupuch East was afforded repeated opportunities to appear before it to be heard, and your committee responded to all procedural queries made by the member, together with all relevant documents in relation to the allegations made. Madam Speaker, your committee was of the opinion that it had exercised tremendous patience and forbearance with members for Urupuch East, even facilitating his unprecedented, misdirected, and dangerous efforts to challenge the legitimacy and jurisdiction of this committee outside of the House of Representatives. The first issue to be determined, Madam Speaker, your committee proceeded with its work, guided by precedents and recognizing that the first and critical issue, simple issue to be determined, was whether the member for Urupuch East uttered the words, "That is why snake have some lead for you," to another member in the House, your committee turned to the official record of the House, the Hansard. Madam Speaker, the report of the committee indicates the Hansard record confirmed that the words, "That's why snake have some lead for you," were uttered by the member for Urupuch East, and the words were directed to the member for Laventille West. Second issue to be determined, your committee next considered whether the words uttered could be deemed threatening. Madam Speaker, it is here that a degree of uncertainty emerged among committee members, not on the part of all members, just a minority. They wanted your committee to conduct research on what constitutes threatening words. Suddenly, they did not know what constitutes a threatening word. Your committee, Madam Speaker, was generally of the view that applying a plain and ordinary interpretation to the words uttered and accepted that the member for Urupuch East was not at the material time of unsound mind. His words uttered were sufficiently threatening in nature. And Madam Speaker, it is a matter of public record that an individual with the alias of Snake was, at around the time in October 2018, material time, charged for assaulting the member for Laventille West at an incident in the Beetham Gardens. Madam, your committee was satisfied that the words uttered and directed at the member for Laventille West were threatening in nature. The third issue for us to determine, Madam Speaker, your committee was further satisfied that the words uttered had the effect of bringing the House into public ridicule and odium, much like some of the behavior we see exhibited here this afternoon. Madam Speaker, whilst crosstalk and picong will take place in the House must be careful to protect its dignity if it is to be respected by the people it serves, especially the young and impressionable. Madam Speaker, as reported, your committee believes that the words that amount to threats against members and others should be condemned by the House of Representatives. Those on this side wholeheartedly condemn any use of threatening words to others in the House. As a consequence, Madam Speaker, in relation to the matter alleging that the member for Urupuch East, as a consequence, Madam Speaker, in relation to the matter alleging that the member for Urupuch East committed contempt, was that?
Members,
So he said something
after I
will deal with
propose
me.
the question, everybody will have an opportunity to speak once they catch my eye. Member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as a consequence of our deliberations and as a consequence of the report that we laid before the House, in relation to the matter alleging that the member for Urupuch East committed contempt of the House of Representatives on the following grounds, your committee is satisfied that A, the words, "That is why snake have some lead for you," were in fact uttered by the member for Urupuch East. And I can tell the population through you, Madam Speaker, not only did we read the written Hansard, the official report, but we also took the precaution of having the audio recording brought into the room and the verification of that audio recording by the officer in charge of Hansard as being a true and accurate recording of what happened on that day. And it was very clear and very audible that those words were in fact uttered. And as you would see, the Hansard reporters are closely situated to the two members that we've discussed. B, the words directed at the member for Laventille West were in fact threatening. It is understood in local parlance what lead refers to. Lead in local parlance, Madam Speaker, refers to, unfortunately, bullets. C, without a doubt, Madam Speaker, the words brought the House, unfortunately, and our proceedings into public odium and disrepute. Madam Speaker, your committee, having deliberated and having made those findings, respectfully recommends that the member for Urupuch East should apologize to the House and the member for Laventille West in the way of personal explanation at the first opportunity subsequent to the presentation of this report. Madam Speaker, that is all that your committee has recommended after deliberating and making the findings that I've referred to. And in spite of that, there was a mad rush to the court, as you have a right to do, but not for an infringement of the powers and privileges of Parliament. And Madam Speaker, as a member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, who is fortunate enough to have the experience of serving on the Privileges Committee, I thank all of those members who served and yourself as the chairman for that opportunity to have participated in protecting the sanctity of Parliament and ensuring that our institution, the independent institution of Parliament, that 41 of us are elected to represent in this Parliament, stands firm here today. And the court, having rejected any application to interfere into the process, we can proceed with today's business. And I beg to move.
Honorable members, I will now. I beg to second this motion, and I reserve my right to speak. Honorable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that this House adopt the report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of threatening words. Member for Princeton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the debate currently before the House. Madam Speaker, as a matter of public record, I would like to draw your attention to a letter that was dispatched on behalf of the opposition by the Chief Whip to your good office on the 26th of June, 2019. Madam Speaker, two issues were raised in this particular piece of correspondence, but the first matter was dealt with in another place, and I will draw your attention to the second matter. Madam Speaker, our second concern in the event that Standing Order 49 is disregarded and a debate is allowed to take place pertains to the integrity of the debate and a possible conflict of interest. Standing Order 92.1 gives the Privileges Committee the power to consider any matter so referred and to report thereon to the House. However, as procedure dictates, it is a House of Representatives which must accept these recommendations or rulings of the committee via debate and approval of such a motion. It must be noted that besides presiding over the debate of the House of Representatives, the Speaker also presides as the chairman of the Privileges Committee, as is evident in this scenario. However, during the proceedings of this committee, serious allegations of disregard for the law and jurisdiction of the court in the matter that was being considered were made against the chair of the committee. These allegations, which are thoroughly ventilated in a minority report submitted by the opposition members of the Privileges Committee, have raised questions on the integrity and manner in which the proceedings of the committee were undertaken. The allegations allude that the committee you chaired failed in allowing due process and natural justice to a member of this House in an effort to achieve a predetermined result. Given that the significant issues and findings of this committee warrant proper debate and discussion by all members of the House of Representatives, it is the view of the opposition that it would be in the best interest of our Parliament if you recused yourself from overseeing the debate of these said issues contained within the final report of the Committee of Privilege. This view is not meant to cast any aspersions or prejudice on your office, but rather a measure that would prevent any conflict of interest which may arise if there is need to defend the decisions of the committee against the views of the members of the House of Representatives. Signed by David Lee, Opposition Chief Whip, Member of Parliament for Point-of-Bear, on behalf of the opposition. Madam Speaker, as I indicated, I wanted to put that on public record because some of the issues contained in this letter that was dispatched to your office on June 26 will be dealt with here today in this debate. Madam Speaker, on the onset, I would like to say that I find it very difficult to support this report and any recommendation and any decision of sanctions against the member for Urupuch East, knowing that the work of the committee is incomplete. Madam Speaker, I want to sound warning to all members, all 41 members, Madam Speaker, that if we adopt the report as we are being asked to do today, It is a disservice to the Parliament. It is a disservice to the rule of law. And it is the undermining of our democracy upon which our nation has been built, as well as the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, I would like to deal with what was the mandate of the committee. And when we look at page 4 of the report, it deals with the mandate of the committee. And the mandate of the committee was to determine whether threatening words was uttered and whether the House was brought into odium and disrepute. Madam Speaker, in identifying the mandate, we then ask the question, how do we determine the truth? How do we determine the truth in pursuing the mandate of the committee? And Madam Speaker, I will come back to that point. You see, Madam Speaker, the Committee of Privilege was asked to satisfy the mandate that was given to us in terms of dealing with this matter, with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Madam Speaker, I am deeply troubled as the member for Couva South by the very first meeting of the Committee of Privilege in this 11th Parliament. Madam Speaker, after the first meeting of the Committee of Privilege of the 11th Parliament, I was led to conclude that when this matter was referred to the committee, the matter was already predetermined and a decision had already been taken. You see, Madam Speaker, we were being asked to be judge, jury, and executioner. Madam Speaker, while we were reminded by the chair of the committee that we were not a judicial body, or we were not a quasi-judicial body, the tenets of natural justice, regardless of which institution, regardless of which committee, regardless to any issue being dealt with in a fair and transparent manner, the tenets of natural justice is always to be adhered to. Madam Speaker, we are required to tell the truth, as I am told. Nothing but the truth, but the whole truth. But you see, Madam Speaker, in our very first meeting, that is not what we were advised by the chair of the committee. And we did not have the benefit of verbatim notes of the proceedings of the committee. We were advised that evidence will be taken into consideration as it relates to the verbatim notes. And I took the opportunity at that time, when there was an utterance coming from the chair, to identify the date, the exact time it was said, and I also took issue with what was said, as did the member for Couva South. Madam Speaker, on November 30th, Friday, November 30th, 2018, at around 11 a.m., Madam Speaker, the utterances from the chair as it relates to the mandate of the committee horrified me. And I quote, Madam Speaker, the chair indicated that we were not here to determine the truth. I repeat that. We were not here to determine the truth. This is what was said by the chair of the committee at our very first meeting, which was described as a table-setting meeting. And you want to know why I am here saying that I believe that this matter was predetermined from day one. Madam Speaker, I heard my honorable colleague from Port of Spain North make a few points. He said that he was happy. He was happy that the member for Oropouche East dealt with process and procedure in accordance with the law. The honorable member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West said he trusts the decision and the guidance of the Speaker. The honorable member for Port of Spain North said that the separation of powers must be adhered to as it relates to the Parliament and the court. And we agree with that. But it does not debar any member from seeking redress in the courts. You see, Madam Speaker, there have been several instances with previous committees of privilege where even former prime ministers sought redress in the courts of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I thought the member for Port of Spain North would have been the last person to speak about attacking independent institutions in this country. I want to remind members opposite, It was a PNM administration that hounded a sitting Speaker of the House, and you want to talk about parliamentary sovereignty and parliamentary democracy? Madam Speaker, this is the same administration, a PNM administration, that hounded a sitting Chief Justice out of office, and they want to speak about attacking institutions. Madam Speaker, the weak, feeble response to the issues of due process will now be dealt with as it relates to the issues identified by the member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West. You see, Madam Speaker, it is our firm view that this entire process has been a charade and it has been a farce. And the contents of the minority report presented by the member for Couva South and myself reflects that. And I will go into some of the details, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to deal with the issue of process, procedure, and administration of the committee. As I said, Member Indar Singh and I are deeply troubled when it comes to process, procedure, and administration. And that is why we cannot lend our support to the report, because a lot more work has to be done, and the work of the committee is incomplete. The member who referred the motion to the House, Madam Speaker, was a member of the committee, the member for Aruka Maloney. The member who was the subject of the allegations made against the member for Urupuch East with respect to the words uttered was also a member of the committee. Madam Speaker, by the first meeting of the Committee of Privilege, we saw, for want of a better word, musical chairs taking place. We asked in our first meeting, Madam Speaker, I recall Member Indar Singh and I asking in our very first meeting, under what standing orders were we replacing and substituting members? Up to now, we cannot get a response as to what standing orders gave the Speaker the authority to substitute members. What we then had happen, Madam Speaker, is that a member of the committee, of the original committee, had recused herself from the two matters, the member for Aruka Maloney. But the member for Laventil West continued to sit in the meeting. Continued to sit in the meeting. And that is why I say members were asked to be judge, jury, and executioner. Madam Speaker, there is no way that the member for Laventil West could continue to sit on one matter before the committee, where he's the subject of the matter, and adjudicate on another matter involving the member for Urupuch East. But, Madam Speaker, I am not surprised. I am not surprised. There always seems to be a level of collusion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I would like to turn your attention as it relates to process, procedure, and administration of the committee to a letter that was dispatched to the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives on February 2nd, 2019. And it says, Dear Madam Speaker, notice of the third meeting of the Committee of Privilege of the House of Representatives. We refer you to the caption and wish to record our objection over the lack of consultation and concurrence with it as it relates to the date and time of the agenda of same. Our position, as indicated, is also consistent in relation to the second meeting of the said committee. We are of the belief that the failure to consult and get our concurrence on issues raised above reflect a disrespect, a lack of courtesy, and has failed to take into consideration our responsibilities to the constituents of Couva South and Princess Town, as well as to the wider nation. Additionally, we wish to refer you to correspondence of the member for Urupuch East, dated February 1st, 2019, under the caption, Request for Decision with respect to preliminary actions made to jurisdiction of the Privileges Committee as presently constituted. I wish to underscore that we are of the belief that there are valid issues which need to be determined by the committee. In the circumstances, we wish to advise you that we are not prepared to be part of any process which may be deemed to be unconstitutional and illegal. Madam Speaker, what applied then applies today. We still have those concerns, and those concerns were never addressed and never dealt with. But, Madam Speaker, I want to repeat a line in this letter Additionally, we wish to refer you to correspondence of the member for Oropouche East dated 1st February 2019 under the caption Request for Decision with respect to preliminary actions made to jurisdiction of the Privileges Committee as presently constituted. This letter is dated February 2nd. The letter provided by the member for Oropouche was dated February 1st. The point made by the member for Port of Spain North was that there were delaying tactics made by the member for Oropouche East. Madam Speaker, as soon as February 1st, the member for Oropouche East sought relief from the committee to determine the matters that he had raised and the objections that he had filed. So that was total rubbish and nonsense coming from the member for Port of Spain North in a feeble attempt to deal with the issue of due process. Madam Speaker, I want to turn to the issue of fairness. The issue of fairness before a Privileges Committee. Madam Speaker, I had the opportunity to look at reports from past Privileges Committee in terms of how the chair dealt with the issue of procedural fairness, natural justice, and due process. Madam Speaker, I turn your attention to the Committee of Privileges report dated the 18th of the second month, 2011. And I quote, Mr. Chairman, I'm quoting then Chairman of the Privileges Committee, who would now be Senator Wade Mark, then having served as the chair of the committee. And this matter dealt with an issue of former Prime Minister Manning raising certain issues in the House, and he was referred to the Committee of Privilege. And when the issue of process and procedure and fair play was raised at the Committee of Privilege, this is what the chairman, Wade Mark, had to say. And I quote, I would just like to reiterate as chairman of this committee that we must not only be fair, but always appear to be fair in all our proceedings and our actions, gracious as well. And in those circumstances, I would like to respectfully submit for the committee's consideration that we concede to the request made by the member and we get our attorneys over to the courts. I would really like to respectfully suggest that we accede to the request of the member for San Fernando East for an adjournment of this matter. But you see, Madam Speaker, that was the chairman in terms of his approach in dealing with procedural fairness when a matter was referred to the courts. But I want to also quote from a member who served on the Privileges Committee of the 10th Parliament. You all may be familiar with him. He's one Dr. Roodal Moonilal, member for Oropouche East. And this is what Dr. Moonilal had to say in response to procedural fairness, natural justice, and due process. Mr. Chairman, again for the record, Mr. Manning has made a clear request, but it is just to place on this record, and I would have no difficulty. I think that other colleagues are also suggesting that the matter should stand down since there's an application before the court with a certain request for relief. And in the event that the relief is granted either 1 or 3, it will impact upon the work of the committee. And that is why I say today, Madam Speaker, in light of the position adopted, and the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's spoke about precedent. This is precedent in a Committee of Privileges of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I want to continue with what Oropouche East had to say. But I also want to note, Mr. Chairman, this is what Oropouche East had to say with respect to procedural fairness when an application was made before the courts. I want to note, Mr. Chairman, because this is not a committee of lawyers and this is not a legal body. Mr. Manning, in the event he believes that he does not get favorable outcome with his applications for leave, the committee members are aware that as a former Prime Minister as well, he may choose to appeal and the decision of the High Court. In the event, for the record, Mr. Manning has 2 other alternatives: Court of Appeal and the Privy Council. And Madam Speaker, the honourable member for Oropouche East actually argued in favour, in the interest of fairness, natural justice, in favour of allowing Mr. Manning his constitutional right to play out before the courts of Trinidad and Tobago. But you see, Madam Speaker, they say facts are a stubborn thing. Facts are a stubborn thing, Madam Speaker. And I want to also quote from a member who was also sitting on the Committee of Privileges in the 10th Parliament. And that member is none other than the member for Diego Martin Northeast, Minister of Finance. And this is what Mr. Imbert had to say. I would like to urge members to follow the Speaker's very good advice. Today, the government is saying that we must trample upon the rights of the member for Oropouche East, but in a different incarnation, the member for Diego Martin Northeast says, in black and white, I would like to urge members to follow the Speaker's very good advice. You see, since I am the 7th named defendant, who is my attorney since that, I'm hearing that we have attorneys, and we, this committee, has attorneys standing by. So while the member was making the case for Mr. Manning to seek redress in the courts and follow due process and natural justice, today they seek to violate that due process and natural justice as it relates to the member for Oropouche East. Madam Speaker, I would also like to turn your attention to something else that was said in the Committee of Privilege in that report dated 18th of the 2nd month, 2011. Mr. Imbert, there's a question to be answered as to whether a member of Parliament, and you know, I believe that the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, really should have spoken to the member for Diego Martin Northeast. You see, in the 11th Parliament, the member for Diego Martin North, St. Anne's West, a minister of government of the PNM administration says one thing, but a member of Parliament in the 10th Parliament belonging to a PNM party said something totally different. So you know, as Irene Hines says, today for me, tomorrow for you. Madam Speaker, I'll repeat what Mr. Imbert said in that Committee of Privilege. There's a question to be answered as to whether a member of Parliament, and he didn't say member for San Fernando East at that time, He said there's a question to be answered as to whether a member of Parliament, which could mean any 41 of us, there's a question to be answered as to whether a member of Parliament has a right to legal representation in the manner in which Mr. Manning has requested. I think it is an important point, and I think it will be very useful for the Parliament and this committee if the courts deal with this once and for all, one way or the other. One way or the other. I do not see it as undermining the work of the committee. I do not see it as undermining the work of the committee. So today we heard big song and dance from the member for Port of Spain North about undermining the work of the committee by making an application to seek redress in the courts. But Mr. Imbert says, I do not see it as undermining the work of the committee at all. Madam Speaker, I want to draw your attention to what the member for Diego Martin Northeast had to say. You see, Madam Speaker, maybe the member for Diego Martin Northeast had a crystal ball, because he sought to give advice to future committees of privilege. Madam Speaker, he says this, I see it as assisting us going forward with other matters of privilege. There's a question to be answered, the manner in which Mr. Manning has requested. I think this is an important point, and I think it will be very useful for the Parliament and this committee if the court deals with that once and for all, one way or the other. I do not see it as undermining the work of the committee at all. In fact, I see it as assisting us going forward with other matters of privilege. Madam Speaker, one former member of Parliament would have said, today is today and tomorrow is tomorrow, and clearly members opposite subscribe to that. Because you see, Madam Speaker, they're not interested in due process, you know. They're not interested in the violation of the constitutional rights of the member for Oropouche East, because they continue to violate the rights of every right-thinking citizens of this country. So, Madam Speaker, that continues to be their modus operandi. So we are not surprised as to why we are here today. Madam Speaker, after dealing with the issue of due process, the issue of rule of law, Madam Speaker, I want to turn to the issue stating that at no time did the member for Oropouche East refuse to come before the Committee of Privilege. I heard the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West refer to a piece of correspondence. And that very first piece of correspondence is where the member for Oropouche East indicated that he would provide his comments. He came to the committee accompanied by his two advisors, and he indicated that he had reservations in terms of the constitution of the committee, the operations of the committee, and that he will write subsequently. And that letter dated February 1st, 2019, dealt with the concerns of the member for Urupuch East. But at no time did any correspondence come to the committee where the member for Urupuch East explicitly indicated, as has been done by previous members of this House and in other parliaments, that they were unwilling to cooperate with the committee. You remember, Madam Speaker, I throw my mind back. There was an instance where the member for Diego Martin West, Diego Martin West refused to appear before the Committee of Privilege, refused, and indicated to the committee that he will not attend and participate. That was not the position adopted by the member for Urupuch East. The member for Urupuch East said, listen, I have constitutional rights, I have concerns with process and procedure, and therefore I will provide those in writing. At no time did the member for Urupuch East indicate that he was unwilling to come before the committee. You see, Madam Speaker, the member for Urupuch East, in the last bit of correspondence that was sent to the Committee of Privilege, again indicated that he was not unwilling to come before the committee. What he indicated at that point was that he had previous commitments, that his advisors were engaged. Madam Speaker, I want to throw your mind back to something again that was dealt with by the chairman of the committee. The chairman of the committee, when receiving that correspondence, advised the Committee of Privilege that she had received, the Honourable Speaker in her chairmanship had advised that she received correspondence from the member for Urupuch East. And at that point, the Honourable Chairman indicated that the Honourable Member could have brought anyone as his advisors to the committee. Again, the member for Couva South and myself raised objection. We said that the member indicated that one of his advisors was a sitting senator, Senator Wade Mark, and the Senate was sitting on that same exact date and time. Madam Speaker, there's no prescription in the standing orders that dictates to the member for Urupuch East who he can and he cannot bring as advisors to the Committee of Privilege. And that is why I come back to the point that all evidence points that this matter was predetermined from day one. You see, Madam Speaker, at that point, I asked the Honourable Chairman of the Committee of Privilege to reread actually what was said in the correspondence sent by the member for Urupuch East. At that time, the Honourable Chairman of the committee, the Speaker of the House, obliged, and she repeated exactly what was said in that correspondence sent by the member for Urupuch East. Madam Speaker, I would like to remind you, when the correspondence was read for a second time in its entirety, what was said in the correspondence sent by the member for Urupuch East. You see, Madam Speaker, the member for Urupuch East, there was one word that was conveniently left out when it was read to us the first time. And then I said, can we have the entirety of what was said by the member for Urupuch East? And you see, the word that was conveniently left out was the word that the member said he was unavailable, but the honourable member said that he was unavailable today. Today. The member didn't say that he's unwilling to come, you know. The member said that he was unavailable today. And therefore, Madam Speaker, when the issue of the member appearing before the committee and being given sufficient chances and so on to appear before the committee was raised by the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West, the member very well knew he was playing smart with foolishness. Madam Speaker, I would like to turn your attention to when an undertaking was given to the court by the chairman of the committee as dealt with by the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West. You see, Madam Speaker, I recall that there was a comment in the Privileges Committee of the 10th Parliament by, again, one Mr. Imbert. And here's where we see the wisdom of the experience of Mr. Imbert. Because Mr. Imbert indicated in the 10th Parliament of the Privileges Committee, Madam Speaker.
Can't call me by name.
I said Mr. Imbert.
No, you can't. Member for Diego Martin
Member for Diego Martin Northeast. My apologies, Madam Speaker. The member for Diego Martin Northeast. You will not stop me from my flight. Because you see, I've internalized this completely. The member for Diego Martin North East in the 10th Parliament, Madam Speaker.
Member for Couva South and all other members need to be advised. While the member for Princestown can really fill this chamber, there's no need to put a strain on his voice cords or on my ears. So we can assist by complying with Standing Order 53.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Diego Martin North East had this to say in the 10th Parliament as it relates to the Committee of Privilege. The honourable member said that any action taken by the Committee of Privilege on behalf of its members must get the concurrence of the committee before the Speaker can give any undertaking to any court. That was what was said by the member for Diego Martin North East. But you see, Madam Speaker, in practice, something very different occurred in the Committee of Privilege of the 11th Parliament. The member for Diego Martin North St. Anne's West spoke about an attorney who dropped a bundle of documents and so on. All that is semantics. Yes. All that is semantics, Madam Speaker. Because you see, Madam Speaker, even if there's 1 minute before the court adjudicates on any matter or hears any matter, the Speaker, in my respectful opinion, and in the respectful opinion of the member for Diego Martin North East, a senior member of this House.
Your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes to
Yes,
end
Madam.
the presentation. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, you see, it's not only my respectful opinion, but it is a respectful opinion of the member for Diego Martin North East, who may very well be one of the most senior members of this House, who told a committee of privilege that before any undertaking is given to a court of law, that the committee must be informed and advised and agree. Madam Speaker, as it relates to the matter raised by the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West, with respect to the application made by the member for Urupuch East in the San Fernando High Court, the Speaker, as chairman of the committee, gave an undertaking to the court, and essentially what is the chairman and the Speaker of the House did, what is the Speaker injuncted the work of the committee. So it was almost as though it was a self-imposed injunction, because the Speaker advised the court that no substantive work will proceed until these matters are properly ventilated. Madam Speaker, fast forward from February to May 2019, where we have traversed different pieces of correspondence, where we have traversed the application before the court. But in 2019, the court gave two options to the member for Urupuch East. And the member for Urupuch East has a right to select. The member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West said, well, he obviously chose the latter's delaying tactics. It is a right, otherwise the court will not give you an option. Yes. The court will not give you an option if it was not your right to choose, Mr. Deputy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Urupuch East chose the date July 8th, in which his matter would have been heard. Madam Speaker, again, what I describe as obscene, and in haste, a Privileges Committee meeting was summoned on June 17, 2019. No consultation with members. We had no idea what the agenda was. And we were told in that meeting, Madam Speaker, we were told in that meeting that the Speaker had withdrawn the self-imposed injunction and decided to proceed with the substantive work of the committee. Yes, so, Madam Speaker, we were coming to that committee totally cat and bag, because we did not know that the Speaker had withdrawn the self-imposed injunction, and we did not know what we were coming to deal with today. And, Madam Speaker, you may not be surprised to know that, again, judge, jury, and executioner in that meeting, a decision was taken to proceed without allowing the member for Urupuch East a right to be heard, without following due process, without following the tenets of natural justice. And then a recommendation was made to be brought to the committee for it to be adopted in the House today. Madam Speaker, and that is why I say I come back to the original point I made in the very beginning. Any member who supports this report being adopted today will support the undermining of the democracy and the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I would like to turn to the issue of the right to be heard. Madam Speaker, while I've established that the honourable member at no time indicated his unwillingness, as part of due process, natural justice, and the rule of law, I would like to put on a public record what is due process. We speak so much about due process. What is due process? You see, Madam Speaker, in determining whether the words were threatening, if we were to take what we are being told in the committee via the Hansard and so on as the truth, even though we were told that we were not here to determine the truth, if we were to take it as the truth, we asked to determine what was threatening words, and we asked for research into what are threatening words and guidelines from other parliaments. You see, Madam Speaker, the chairman of the committee indicated at that time that she did not see it necessary because she gave an interpretation of what was snake and what was lead. And the honourable chairman indicated that snake to her meant something to be feared and lead meant something heavy. Madam Speaker, one would think that in the course of natural justice, that was what the honourable chair of the committee had to say. That is not my words. Those were the committee. So I know, San Fernando West, even you are surprised. Even you, San Fernando West, are surprised by the conduct and the words presented by the chairman of that committee. You see, Madam Speaker, at that point,
that is entirely inappropriate, both to the chair and to me. It is imputing an improper motive, 48.4 and 48.6. I'm surprised at the twist.
Please continue, Francis.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, you see, it was at that point that I was further convinced. I was further convinced when the committee decided that we were proceeding, and the committee decided to look at what was threatening with and took a very simplistic approach and started to introduce extraneous issues, as the member for Port Spain North, St. Anne's West spoke about issues in Laventil and so on, and decided to interject that into the Committee of Privilege. At that point, I realized that the approach adopted by the committee was rigid, combative, and unwilling to compromise. You see, Madam Speaker, I am not surprised, because as we were guided from the start, it resulted in the very same way, which is we were not there to determine the truth. The truth was not important.
You mind?
Sorry, Madam.
Please.
Madam, it appeared that the truth was not important, just a predetermined result. You see, Madam Speaker, there was a breach of the rules of natural justice. Madam Speaker, the Speaker, in my respectful view, had a duty to act fairly. And Madam Speaker, in my respectful view and in the review of the member for Couva South, the Speaker failed in that duty. Madam Speaker, in determining a breach of natural justice, what do we look at? We look at the rules against bias. And Madam Speaker, I think I've provided sufficient evidence to this Parliament that there was evidence
for Princess
of bias.
I ask you again to look this way. It seems you are pivoting that way. Please.
Sorry,
please,
Madam.
Thank you.
Madam, so having established the rule of bias in breaching the rules of natural justice, we also have to determine whether there was a right to a fair hearing. And again, I have established that the honourable member did not have a right to a fair hearing. The right to know of adverse evidence. Madam Speaker, that was some of the issues that the honourable member for Oropouche East raised and still has not been ventilated. The right to rebut evidence. Madam Speaker, the committee took the decision in one meeting, the very last meeting, without giving the member the opportunity to rebut any evidence. The right to cross-examination. Again, this right was taken away from the member for Oropouche East. The right to representation. The right to representation, a fundamental rule of law, the fundamental rule of natural justice. We were told that the honourable member could choose anybody, and therefore his right to choose someone who he has faith and trust and confidence in, who was sitting in the Senate, was trampled upon. You see, Madam Speaker, in my respectful view, the committee violated all those rights that falls under the issue of natural justice. Madam Speaker, let us look at the issue of due process and the violation of due process. You are guaranteed life, liberty, and right to property. You should not be denied what right to be heard. You see, Madam Speaker, in Article 6 of human rights, one of the human rights is a fair hearing. A fair hearing to be heard before an independent decision maker. And that independent decision maker will give you all the relevant information and allow you representation. That is in the Human Rights Article 6. That right, that human right of the member for Oropouche East was totally thrown out of the window. Madam Speaker, in summing up, what the committee is being asked to do today, what the committee is asking the House to do today is to legitimize all the procedural errors and blunders that occurred and to legitimize a violation of constitutional rights, the breach of due process, rule of law, and natural justice by accepting this report. You see, Madam Speaker, how do we fulfill the mandate of the committee if we are not here to determine the truth? But how do we determine the truth? And that is by following due process. Was due process followed? A resounding no. Madam Speaker, if this House were to adopt the committee's report, as has been laid on a previous occasion and being debated today, it will be a violation and a breach of the rights and privileges of the member for Oropouche East. It is clear, Madam Speaker, by the argument pointed out, and by traversing where we were from November 30th to where we are today, this matter was totally predetermined. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we can lend no support. The committee should be given a mandate to go back and complete your work in a proper, functional way in accordance to the tenets of the rule of law and natural justice. I thank
Member for San Fernando East.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for recognizing me as I rise in support of the motion that the House adopt the report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of threatening words. Madam Speaker, I want to first start off by commending the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West as he skillfully explained the application of the law and the constitutional principles. Madam Speaker, and not being a member of the committee, I am advised, Madam Speaker, that the chair of the committee did not say that the committee was not there to seek truth. Madam Speaker, it is horrifying that a member under the guise of freedom of expression in this House could just manufacture untruths. Just so. Madam Speaker, I would also say, Madam Speaker, that the former member for San Fernando East, the Honorable Patrick Manning, did not seek to injunct this House from any matter. Madam Speaker, he withdrew the matter. He withdrew the matter from the court. Madam Speaker, please. Madam Speaker, I came here prepared for members opposite to take us down that rabbit hole. A rabbit hole of distraction, confufflement, and confusion. The member for Princestown spoke about constitutional issues and rule of law, natural justice, allegation of bias, due process, procedure, administration. Madam Speaker, he is not a lawyer as yet. I am a lawyer. Yeah. Madam Speaker, this is not a matter of law. Correct. This is a matter of principle and common sense. That's right. That's right. And Madam Speaker, I cannot be any more disappointed in the member for Oropouche East. The member for Oropouche East, it is becoming more and more apparent that he is guilty of a pattern of misconduct in this House. And Madam Speaker, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down.
Stand up and sit down. And 48. Sit down. Madam Speaker, the member for Lavertail West continues to be offensive and I want you to take charge of his behavior.
Otherwise, I will.
Yeah.
I'll let
Okay, so I'll just remind us all, it's the right of any member to stand up and raise an objection on a standing order. While members have that right, of course, they will not be allowed to abuse that right. Okay, so member for Caroni East, I'm not sure what you stood up on, because initially I thought you stood up with respect to something raised by the Minister of Tourism. And then Member for Superior, I'd at least like to hear myself. Thank you very much. By the end of your submission, I think you now turned me to Laventille West. So I give you an opportunity to let me know what you want me to rule on.
The member for San Fernando East used language that was offensive in terms of his description of the behavior of member for Oropuch East. And while I was on my feet, the member for Laventille West was very offensive to me. And there are certain things that are said that I do not want to repeat, but you would have heard it.
Okay, all right. So in respect to the first matter you stood on, with respect to the Minister of Tourism and raising certain matters you said that were offensive to the member of Oropuch, I overrule that. In respect to what you said that you couldn't say with respect to member for Laventille West, I started by cautioning that every member is entitled to stand and raise an objection on a standing order, and we should all respect that. But before I take my chair, and this applies to certain members on both sides, there is a tendency for members to sit in their very reclined position and under the guise of crosstalk, interject and blurt out things. I think that leads us down a wrong path. So for all offending members, desist. And that will include some members who stand up and raise objections under standing orders. Member for San Fernando East.
Madam Speaker, and I thank you for your guidance. And Madam Speaker, as I was saying, the member for Oropuch East is guilty of a pattern of misconduct. And Madam Speaker, that pattern just ruled on.
I stand.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, 48-4.
I'll say it again.
Okay? So while it might be under the guise of a different member, those were the exact words that I overruled a short while ago. And again, as I said, while every member has an opportunity to stand on a standing order, they can't abuse it. Member for San Fernando East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I will say it again. The member for Oropuch East, it is becoming more and more apparent that the member is guilty of a pattern of misconduct. And if it
Madam
is, Madam
Speaker,
Speaker,
48-6, this is not a substantive motion on the member for San Fernando East, a report on one issue.
Madam Speaker.
Again, I overrule.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if they don't understand the pattern of misconduct, Madam Speaker, the member for Princestown indicated that the member for Laventille West did not recuse himself from this matter. He recused himself from both matters. And Madam Speaker, I am to report that the member for Oropuch East in the pattern of misconduct, it is not the first matter he has before the
No,
Committee of Privileges.
Okay, so I will let you go there. Oh. Member for Cover South, I think you intend to speak in this debate, and therefore I'll ask you to wait till such time. If it is that you're too excited and you don't have my ears yet, you can take a little walk and come back. Okay, please. And I'll ask all members in the gallery also. You're here as our guest, and therefore you have to comply with the standing orders. Member for San Fernando East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is compounded by the member's defiance anytime he is confronted with his unacceptable behavior. And Madam Speaker, if I am not to go there, I have to remind this House that in our very first debate, when the member held the very high office of the official opposition chief whip before he was replaced.
Let's keep to this, okay? So that if you want to talk about a pattern of misconduct and it's within what is the report, I will allow it. But I would not allow us to go to other matters that may have occurred with member for Oropuch East.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, he apologized for that particular action. And in that particular action, he brought the entire House and members into this
please. Member, please. Member, please. Let's leave that and go on to what you want to deal with the report, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I'm disappointed that it is over 8 months now that these matters were first complained of. And in over 8 months, since the October the 10th, 2018, that the member, the very experienced member, had not availed himself to simply apologize to this House and apologize to the member of for Laventille West. Because, Madam Speaker, that simple act of contrition, we in this House, Madam Speaker, would not have had to waste 8 months of the Parliament's time on this matter. And, Madam Speaker, or 5 months of the court's time and the high cost to engage senior counsel, just trying, Madam Speaker, to preserve the member for Oropuch East's ego. It is, Madam Speaker, to further compound my own disappointment.
It is leadership.
I am aware, Madam Speaker, that this House has always exercised tolerance and restraint in exercising its penal jurisdiction. Save and accept, Madam Speaker, where to do so was essential to provide the protection of this House from odium and public ridicule. Madam Speaker, I have observed members on both sides of the House would have said things that are unparliamentary. Member for Naparima, often made to stand and withdraw. Me, myself, Madam Speaker, would have said things unparliamentary and would have been made to stand and withdraw and sometimes apologize. But, Madam Speaker, not the member for Oropuch East. I indicated, Madam Speaker, that I am not going to be drawn into any rabbit hole of distraction. Madam Speaker, the issues in this matter of privilege are simple, and I commend the Committee of Privileges for making these matters simple so that the man in the street, that children can understand them. Madam Speaker, the first issue, member for Princestown didn't touch on it. He spoke about everything else, bias, procedure, everything. But the first issue, Madam Speaker, is did the member for Oropuch East utter the words to the member for Laventille West? And that is a simple fact to establish. Madam Speaker, it was unnecessary for the committee to call the member for San Fernando East to provide direct evidence in this inquiry. But, Madam Speaker, I could have told you I sat here. I was here and I was witness to when the member for Oropuch East turned to the member for Laventille West and uttered the words, "That is why snake have lead for you." I was right here and I heard it. The member said it. And, Madam Speaker, I immediately interpreted those words to be directed to the member for Laventille West because previously there was an incident reported involving the member for Laventille West and somebody by the alias of Snake who had assaulted the member and was subsequently convicted.
One of the soldiers.
And was subsequently convicted.
One of the soldiers.
But, Madam Speaker, it was unnecessary for me to be called because, Madam Speaker,
Is somebody offending device? Please leave the chamber.
Embarrassing.
Continue, member for San Fernando.
Madam Speaker, it
just
was
1 minute. I haven't seen anybody leave.
It's my friend.
Member for San Fernando East.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, it was unnecessary to call upon me or any other member within earshot to give direct evidence to that inquiry, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, video and audio recordings are taken of all the matters that occur in this chamber. And it's not by chance, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having listened and viewed the audio-visual recording, the committee was satisfied that the words were said by the member for Oropouche East. More than that, Madam Speaker, the Hansard team of reporters were consulted and confirmed that the words were of the member for Oropouche East. Madam Speaker, I consulted the Hansard. On page 27 of the Hansard for that day, it is right there in black and white, being said by the member for Oropouche East. Madam Speaker, in the 8 months, I have not heard, despite all that the member for Princestown had said, I had not heard the member for Oropouche East distance himself from those words. The member for Oropouche East never challenged that he said the words to the member for Laventille West. Madam Speaker, it is therefore very reasonable for me, as a member of this House, to draw the inference that the member for Oropouche East accepts and admits that he said the words to the member for Laventille West, "That is why snake have lead for you." So, Madam Speaker, he does not deny the allegations, Madam Speaker. What he simply does is to defy the rules, the conventions, and the dignity of this House. Madam Speaker, the second issue to be considered, now that we are satisfied that the words are attributed to the member for Oropouche East, is whether the words are threatening. Madam Speaker, the determination of this issue, you don't need 3 senior counsel, and you don't need to go to court to understand that. We all live in this place called Trinidad and Tobago. We live in this place called the Caribbean. We are exposed to urban culture. We know that when somebody says copper and lead, it means bullet.
It could be a with them.
Yes, copper and lead. He said lead.
It could be a conspiracy too.
It means bullet. And Madam Speaker, that means
gunman
gunshots.
Talk. Gunman talk.
So what the member for Oropouche East was
Could be a
saying,
conspiracy.
Madam Speaker, and what I understood by what he said was that the snake, the man by the alias of Snake,
They will do anything,
has gunshots for the member for Laventille West.
And them will do anything.
We don't need 3 senior counsels for that, Madam Speaker.
Criminals.
And the third issue is whether the threatening words, because we have established that the words said by the member for Oropouche East to the member for Laventille West were threatening. The third issue was whether the words had the effect of bringing this House into public odium. Madam Speaker, the member for Oropouche East is a seasoned parliamentarian. He has been in this House since 2001. 18 years, Madam Speaker, that's almost half my lifetime. I recall the member for Oropouche East, Madam Speaker. I was a young man just out of school. He was banging on doors all over San Fernando East campaigning against Patrick Manning. Well, he got a good licking then. But Madam Speaker, I paid attention, as a young man, I paid close attention to the politics and to the goings-on inside the Parliament and outside the Parliament. And I can tell you at that time, the major issue in the Parliament at that time was the airport scandal. Madam Speaker, just as I paid attention back then, we have young, impressionable minds, persons who are seeking to enter into these chambers, to be legislators, looking on at these proceedings and reading the Hansard. Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, this cannot be the example that we as parliamentarians could set for those young, impressionable minds. Madam Speaker, John Public is going to think that that is the standard of behavior that occurs in this place if it is allowed to continue and if the member for Oropouche East is not admonished and censured and made to apologize in this House. We are not in the street, we're not in the market, Madam Speaker. We are within the walls of the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So, Madam Speaker, I support the recommendation that the member proceed with an act of contrition and apologize for his actions to the member for Laventille West and to this Parliament. Madam Speaker, I don't want to be too long. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, freedom of expression is one of the most important constitutional rights enjoyed in this House. And members must be free to express themselves in the course of representing their interests and of their constituents and in the process of lawmaking. The right of free speech is so fundamental, Madam Speaker, and so sacrosanct that it is generally left up to members to tread carefully and not to abuse this right. It is, however, Madam Speaker, in this House, not an unfettered right. And it remains possible for this House to restrain members who offend the House by their words and utterances. The member for Oropuch East is a seasoned member of 18 years. He's very much familiar with the rules of this House. He is a past leader of the House. He is a past chief whip and was a member of the Joint Select Committee, Madam Speaker, of this House, responsible for the very standing orders that we are governed by today. He was a member.
And he's vying for leadership of the UNC.
Madam Speaker, the member knows better. The member for Oropuch East knows better. And the member knows his actions and the words uttered are unparliamentary, and yet the member remains defiant. So, Madam Speaker, I support the motion in the main, but, Madam Speaker, I beg to move an amendment to the motion. An amendment to the motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, be it resolved that this House do now call upon the member for Oropuch East to apologize to this House and to the member for Laventille West at the next sitting of this House by way of personal explanation. Madam Speaker, the member for Oropuch East must consider this infradig. This is beneath the dignity of this House. His actions has brought the House into public odium and ridicule, Madam Speaker. I support the motion, and I hope that when the member gets up to defend himself here, even though he had 8 months to defend himself in the committee, I hope that he apologizes to this House and to the member for Laventille West. And, Madam Speaker, with those few words, I thank you.
So that I believe a proposal for an amendment was made by the member for San Fernando East.
Madam Speaker, this amendment.
Honorable members, I shall now propose that the amendment moved by the member for San Fernando East and seconded by the member for St. Anne's East for an amendment that the member for Oropuch East should apologize to the House, and the member for Laventille West in the House by way of personal explanation at the first opportunity subsequent to the presentation of this report, which would be the recommendation that is considered, that is given on page 12 of the report, that be amended to add, and that this recommendation be adopted by this House.
But what is he adding?
So those words are added to the recommendation. Yes, those words are added to the recommendation and to the resolution. So the whole thing, the whole matter would be that the motion is now being sought to be amended, moved by San Fernando East, seconded by St. Anne's East. Our motion initially was, be it resolved, and when I mean our, I mean the motions that is before the House. Okay? Be it resolved that the House adopt the report of the Committee of Privileges of the House of Representatives on the allegation of threatening words, and by adding that the member for Oropuch East should apologize to the House, and the member for Laventille West in the House by way of personal explanation, and at the first opportunity subsequent to the presentation of this report. So that is included in the resolution by the House. And I believe that has been seconded by the member for St. Anne's East. Member for Naparima, I am hearing you. So the question is that the motion be amended by adding the words which I have just recited. And therefore, any member standing to speak hereafter is entitled to speak on the original motion and the motion that has been amended. Member for Oropuch East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thought it was an opportune moment to intervene in this debate, since, Madam Speaker, regrettably for me, and I think regrettably for the country, I am the central feature of the Parliament business today. You see, Madam Speaker, this is a very sad day in the Parliament and in parliamentary history for everyone, and the government members will indicate why it is sad for them. But it's also very sad for me, because we have Senator the Honorable Haji Kazim Hussein here with us, waiting 25 years for local government reform. And today, instead of debating local government reform to deliver goods and services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you come to debate me. I want to begin with an apology. I want to apologize to the thousands of people who cannot get water in this country today. I want to apologize to the thousands of persons who have lost their jobs because of this government. I want to apologize to the thousands of persons who have lost social security assistance. I want to apologize, Madam Speaker, for the conduct of this government in destroying the economy.
Point of order. 48-1.
Member for Oropuch East, I uphold the objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's debate the report.
Madam Speaker, that would be the end of my apology for this day. Madam Speaker, it really disturbs me to speak on this motion, but I think I have to. I want to begin by congratulating Princess Town, and to say, in my biased view, that has been his best presentation in this parliament. But that is, of course, my view. But it was a clinical, passionate, comprehensive, and I might say a presentation with some legal acumen. And one that was thoughtful, sincere, and I believe honest as to what transpired. And we will hear, I hope, later in the proceedings from Couva South, who was also part of that committee. Madam Speaker, the member for San Fernando East replaced a gentleman, no longer in the House, no longer in the compound, Patrick Mervyn Augustus Manning. Had that man been alive to hear this person who represents San Fernando East today, I think he would have turned in his proverbial grave to hear that this is what replaced him. The member, who was not a member of any committee, spoke, and Madam Speaker, quite frankly, I could not understand A from Z coming from the member for San Fernando East. So I would like to just raise a few points quickly. And firstly, as it relates to the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, who was indeed a member of this committee, and I think, unless I'm mistaken, he was one of the only members of the government to have stayed the course. Although I think for one meeting he was not present, or so, I'm not sure. Madam Speaker, to remind the gentleman from Port of Spain North, as he quite rightly knew, he represented former Prime Minister Patrick Manning before the Privileges Committee when I was a member. And Mr. Manning took the Privileges Committee to court. Mr. Manning may not have filed in for injunctive relief, but he took them to court. That's right. And Madam Speaker, I have taken note of your ruling today, which I will also abide by. Because this matter, the substance of this matter before us, is before the High Court today. Properly before the High Court and in full flight. It did not start last week, as we know, not last month. So this matter is before the court, and we are discussing this matter because the Speaker has ruled, which is within the powers of the Speaker, that there's a general public interest. It is a live, active matter before the court. The next date for hearing, I believe, is July the 8th, Madam Speaker. But we can speak about it because of the ruling. So Mr. Manning went to court, and the member for Princestown said, and I will not repeat that the Privileges Committee at that time, the chairman, myself, agreed that if the matter was before the court, we ought to stay the proceedings. And we were informed as well by the then secretary to that committee. I have the Hansard account, which I read, who also advised us, the then secretary of that committee, that it would have been proper and good to stay proceedings because you did not want San Fernando East to go to the court and argue there that he was being oppressed. That while the matter was before the court, the Committee of Privileges was moving full speed ahead. Madam Speaker, I just want to put on record again, properly, I have in my hand here a letter, June 25th, 2013, addressed to Ms. Jackie Sampson Miguel, Secretary to the Committee of Privileges. June 25th. Now that is of this month, 2013. Dear Madam, in light of developments before the committee on Monday, July 24th, I think it necessary to make my position clear for the record. I do not intend to and will not commence my defense of the charges being considered by the committee. That's the Committee of Privileges. I do not intend to and will not commence my defense of the charges being considered by the committee until the committee has called all its witnesses. So this, the writer is telling the committee how to conduct its business. Until you have called all your witnesses and the police have concluded their investigations. So a matter before the police, the writer is saying, wait, Dorothy, wait for the police to conclude investigations, and I am not commencing my defense. I will accordingly not answer any further questions from members of the committee on statements made by me in the House. Otherwise, I reserve my rights, including my right to approach the High Court for relief in relation to many breaches I have identified in previous correspondence. The writer, yours sincerely, Dr. Keith Rowley, MP, member for Diego Martin West, leader of the opposition. This is on record. I dare any member opposite find a letter written by me, by the member for Rupuchis. Find one letter, one correspondence in which I have told the committee that I will not commence my defense. I will not commence my defense. Find a letter or a correspondence in which I have told your committee that I will not, don't call me, I'm answering no questions. Find that letter. Produce it today. Not at the next sitting, produce it today. And tell me that I indicated to your committee that I will not participate, I will not support the committee. Madam Speaker, the first meeting when I was called, I waited 1.5 hours. I was called for 2:30. I was called into the room at 3:56. I waited for 1.5 hours. When I was finished, the chairman of the committee thanked me for my patience. The chairman said, we want to thank you for your patience. That's somebody who is not trying to avoid. They talk about delaying tactics and want to let time run and avoid. The same government that wanted to extend freedom of information by 30 days to 180 days. Talking about delay. Madam Speaker, the member for Diego Martin West is on record as telling a committee of privileges, I will not answer any questions from you. And if you hear my language, you will know that this is how the gentleman speaks. It must be his letter. It must be a letter from him. I will not answer any further questions from members of this committee. Just tell me when, where, how, and why I told the Committee of Privileges I will not participate. Madam Speaker, that fateful day, when what turned out to be the last meeting was being called, I informed the committee through the secretary that I could not make that meeting today because two of my advisors, and I have the right to be represented by anyone I want. My two advisors known to the committee were Senator Wade Mark and attorney at law, former Senator Gerard Ramdeen. That's my two advisors. No one can tell me that I should ask San Fernando West to advise me, that I should ask San Fernando East to advise me. Nobody can tell me that. To tell me that is to infringe on my right to legal representation, which is my constitutional right of fair hearing. So from the time someone says that I can bring any advisor I want, you are infringing on my rights. And that happened. The member for Princess Song indicated that. Madam Speaker, there was a Senate sitting on the day. Imagine I have an advisor who is known to the committee, known to be a senator for 35 years. The Senate is meeting on the day, and I tell the committee my advisor is in a meeting of the Senate. He cannot make today, but could you tell me a date and time convenient, and we can meet? That is on an email. You know, Madam Speaker, this Committee of Privilege did not have the courtesy to write back to me, type something back to me, an email, a text, a Twitter, a WhatsApp, to tell me, Mr. Gentleman, we are having a meeting, and this is the last meeting, or we are proceeding without you. Whether you are there or not, we are proceeding without you. I did not have the courtesy of a reply. I got an acknowledgement, so I knew, let her reach. But no one told me that they are proceeding, and please, whether you have advisors or not, we are proceeding. Madam Speaker, maybe in that context, I would drop everything and leave San Fernando and fly up to Port of Spain and participate as best as I can. I may have had to ask my friend from La Hoqueta to represent me. Or I may have had to ask Senator Mark to leave the Senate business. I think they were dealing with an important matter of bail, I think, that day. I would have had to ask Mr. Ramdeen to cancel some other business. Or I may have had to come alone and fend for myself. I did not get the benefit of a reply. Then I read in the report, you know, when this committee started its business, there was a nice, beautiful note sent here. It is on page 5 of the report. It says, Madam Speaker, your committee agreed to the following procedures and practices. And listen to number A, number 7. That's what I call it. During hearings, when evidence is being taken, the member, meaning me, would be invited to be in attendance in accordance with established principles, but would not be able to participate. So there's a commitment by your committee in terms of fairness, procedure, and practice, that during hearings, when evidence is taken, the member would be invited to be in attendance so I can hear what people are saying. I read in this report, Madam Speaker, I read that there were persons called from the Hansard, and they appeared there as witnesses to give evidence. Madam Speaker, I do not know this. I was never written to. I was never told. A pigeon did not travel from Port of Spain to Oropouche East with a note on the foot telling me that 2 witnesses were being called, and they were going to give evidence as to the authentic nature of that statement, audio and written. I did not know this. How could you do this behind my back? But how you could do this behind my back? Madam Speaker, I'm looking in my back to see what place it have again for another dagger. That is like taking a dagger and putting it in my back. I'm almost tempted to say lead, but I won't. I won't, Madam Speaker. How could the Committee of Privileges, and I asked the member for San Fernando West, the Attorney General of this country, who speaks, I think, very eloquently about law and fairness and rule of law and procedure and practice, how could the committee violate your own procedure and practice at number 7 and come today to make a recommendation? Or should I not have been told that there are witnesses coming? They are coming to give evidence on point A and B, and you are invited. Now, that is a completely different thing from calling me as a witness with my advisors, because I could have attended that, because I have nothing to say. In fact, I could not say, but I could listen to what evidence they are giving. That was a fundamental part of the procedure and practice. So by that alone, this report is flawed. On that principle alone, the report is flawed. Because you see, Madam Speaker, I don't want to get into the details, but I could have asked the question that you are saying that I said those statements, and you're very clear without the FBI technology that it is my voice. So, okay, let's get past that. Tell me what technology you have to say that I heard the member of San Fernando East, I turned to the member for Lavantil West. Madam Speaker, I'm sitting here regrettably facing him for my entire parliamentary life. I cannot turn to him, I can turn to you. I cannot turn to him, whether I like it or not, he's in my sight. In my face, Madam Speaker. So I am here and I turn to the member. So why I didn't turn to the member for Caroni Central and indicated to him that was my remark intended for him? How I didn't turn to Caroni Central? Madam Speaker, I would have been in a position to know that. But that is not the real issue here. It's not those issues of evidence and the facts and so on. It is that I was denied an opportunity to attend when evidence was being given. But you know, Madam Speaker, on that evidence, I had one more question I wanted to raise when my time comes to the committee, which I have never said I will not participate. I wanted to ask the Hansard recorders why it is on the day of October 10th, before any member of this House got a copy of the parliamentary record, that snippet went external to someone outside of the parliament. Why and how? How? And that person sent it back to me. So the first sight I had of Mr. Snake was sent by someone external to this parliament.
Who first said it?
Madam Speaker, well, Madam Speaker, I don't want to tell him anything again today. I get in enough trouble. Madam Speaker, why that evidence that you later become evidence went to an external someone, a stranger to this House, before any member of this House saw it? I got it first from elsewhere, Madam Speaker. I would have asked the Hansard reporters that. I would have been concerned with that leak and what was the purpose of that. But I did not have that opportunity, Madam Speaker. You see, on that fateful day, Madam Speaker, the member for Lavantil West got up and rushed all about the place, Madam Speaker, and indicated that he felt threatened and so on. He felt threatened and so on. And I have in my hand an article from the Express, October 11th, which is just the day after. Hines calls in police for Roodal. Minister Fitzgerald Hines has asked the police to look at whether statements made by Dr. Roodal Moonilal that Snake have led for me, well, that means him, points to a threat on his life. Madam Speaker, this was the day after. Had the committee allowed me a reasonable opportunity to attend, I went to one meeting. I told you, I saw in this report, I've read the report thoroughly, so I don't want to waste time by quoting extensively from what I know in the report. There's a statement in the report that I refused to give an opening statement. I gave an opening statement. The verbatim is here. I have it in my hand. The parliamentary staff just brought it to me. Madam Speaker, I came to your committee January 7th and gave an opening statement. And in my opening statement, I said that I will commit my points, my concerns in writing to you. And we had a nice, stiff, friendly, Madam Speaker, about when we will be able to do that, how fast, and we need to move and so on. This was an opening statement. When the chair called upon me to make a statement on the particular incident, I said, no, I prefer not to make statements on the particular incident because I had to write on preliminary matters. and the preliminary matters was my opening statement. I thought that was very clear. Then we went on, Madam Speaker, as is my right. Thank you. Madam Speaker, as is my right, I have a right to go to the High Court to seek redress. As is my right, I proceeded there. Madam Speaker, the next sitting, when the Parliament, when the committee called on the date, and I'll tell you, we went to the court in San Fernando.
53, please, I mean, this by the government side,
Could you tell
please.
me which standing order?
53(1)E, Madam Speaker.
So I'll just advise all members because it appears that member for Point of Pear is being disturbed. I am hearing the member for Oropuch East very well. But please could all members be guided with the crosstalk or the speaking above certain levels. Continue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on an interpretation of the thing, of the line itself, had I the opportunity, and according to this report, it says as page 5, I declined the opportunity to be heard. Madam Speaker, when this matter was called again on the next occasion, Madam Speaker, that is when the first attempt at an injunction was filed and heard in the San Fernando court. That is when the chairman gave an undertaking that they will not proceed with matters against me. Madam Speaker, I was in San Fernando when I heard the lawyers say this. So, Madam Speaker, I'm not coming to Port of Spain if you don't need me. I was invited, yes. But when you gave the undertaking in the morning that the committee will not proceed with both matters, there were two matters. Today we are forgetting one. There were two matters. Matter involving the Diego Martin West member. That was removed, I believe, on the very day. On the day the committee gave an undertaking, the speaker, the chairman in San Fernando, on the same day, a matter was removed. The matter involving the member for Diego Martin West, on the grounds that the member for Diego Martin West went to court in a defamation matter. So it was removed. So in a way, the committee did tamper with the business. And we have not debated or accepted that report. Madam Speaker.
With a particular report before us.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Please.
So, Madam Speaker, on that day, it was a Tuesday, I remember. There was no need for me to come to Port of Spain if you are not dealing with the matters, the both matters that affected me.
Of thing that we fall into a word, but I'd prefer if you say the committee.
The committee.
And leave you out of this.
Okay.
Whoever you is.
Sure. I understand what you're saying.
Good.
Madam Speaker, the committee gave an undertaking 9 o'clock in the morning that they will not deal with the both issues at that time that involve me as a subject. Why do I leave San Fernando and come to Port of Spain if you have no business with me? Today, the member for Port of Spain not calling the date and saying I failed to show up. But you gave an undertaking that you will not deal with the matter. Madam Speaker, on the next day a meeting was called, I believe it was May 4th. Madam Speaker, it is a matter of public record. On May 4th, the matter was called. One of my attorneys at law, at that time, one of my attorneys at law was involved in a matter with the police and was not available to go to court. Madam Speaker, simply put, Madam Speaker, in fact, not one, both. They were detained by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So what are we to do? Madam Speaker, that is a fact, it's a matter of public record. Madam Speaker, on the 12th of June, when I got a note in my email, and the first note I have it here, you know, Madam Speaker, the first note said, it was dated the 12th of June, and so I invite you to a meeting on Monday, the 11th of June. That's true, no? That's true. Madam Speaker, what I did next led me to no end of being buff. I got buff up good for that one. I got buff up. I innocently and without any malice, in good faith, sent a note to the secretary to say, look, I think you have made an error. Clearly you can't invite me on the 12th for a meeting on the 11th. I did that. I had an option. I could have left that alone and maybe nobody would recognize it. And when Monday the 17th comes, I would say, but hello, you sent me a note inviting me to Monday the 11th. I win, boo. That is what I could have done. In good faith, I corrected an administrative error of the committee. in good faith. And I get booked for it. Keep on saying that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on that Monday, Madam Speaker, when we realized the committee intended to proceed, we did what is open to any citizen to go to court for injunctive relief. The court felt that they were not prepared to rule in our favor, and they didn't. No, sorry, we missed something. On June the 14th, the Friday, papers were served that we were looking for an injunction. We were seeking injunctive relief, interim relief. The meeting was due to be held, Madam Speaker, on the Monday. But the time we got to hear the interim relief was on the Tuesday. It was communicated to lawyers at 12 o'clock on the Monday, I think 3 hours before the committee met. So the committee ought to have had knowledge that this matter is coming up, Madam Speaker, in less than 24 hours. The committee met. The committee determined it would be the last meeting. The committee called witnesses. The committee ended, and the committee produced what I consider to be in obscene and naked haste, completed an incomplete, flawed report and brought it to the House. You see, Madam Speaker, the injunctive relief we sought today and yesterday is not to injunct the committee. The committee done. The committee finishes work and gone its way. They get up, dust their pants, and gone. It was when the matter comes to the House, and the House was due to debate it, knowing that it would be flawed, incomplete, poison, the fruit of a poisonous tree, knowing, Madam Speaker, that it could be, we have issues before the court that deem that the committee may have been unlawful, illegally constituted. We approached the court for interim relief. The court said no, that's fine. But the substantive matter is still before that court. And it is before the court structure. It may go to the Court of Appeal. It may go to our friends in the Privy Council. Lord Wolf and Lord Brown Wilkinson and Lord Bingham of something could meet. And Lord Diplock to decide the matter. We don't know, Madam Speaker. But what I'm saying is the matter is before the court. And that is a critical matter. You see, Madam Speaker, this is not about an apology to Lavantil West. I'll tell you one time. All the time as San Fernando East, I think that's the only good thing, right thing he said. We make comments all the time. In fact, we conduct ourselves all the time. I have no problem telling the member for Lavantil West, look, I apologize to you. I meant you no physical harm. I mean no physical harm to the member for Lavantil West. I may mean him political harm, but not physical harm. At no time did I intend that my language was to threaten his life, his limb, or his locks. At no time. And if anything I have said, he believes threaten his life, limb, and locks, I unreservedly apologize. What's wrong with that? I mean, I have been around this member, spying with him, for about 18 years or more, I think. When I was Minister of Housing, he came to me for assistance for other persons, not himself. He knows that. He used to approach me in the corridor, and we would talk about housing and so on.
Member for Lavantil.
Let me clarify this.
Wait.
No.
Will you give
member? No. Thank you. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I recall...
1 minute. Member for Lavantil. Just withdraw that. Please.
I do withdraw that. I just wanted to make
Madam Speaker.
Member for Lavantil West. You asked your friend to yield. It is up to him, and he said no. You will have your opportunity to speak in the debate if you wish.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, so I've been around this member. I am very much accustomed to this conduct.
Can I ask on a point of clarification based on something the member said? Thank you.
No. No, I thought it was a standing order.
I just want to clarify something.
Please. What you want to clarify something?
That you said.
Member for Aruka Maloney, it is either you ask your friend to yield or you let me know what standing order as a point of order is standing order.
My friend to yield on a point of clarification. Okay.
Madam Speaker, let me proceed, please. The member for Lavantil West has been in this chamber for many years. I've been here for many years. And we spar time and time again. And it is not unknown that as tempers grow and so on, we would have, words exchanged. And we apologize. There's nothing wrong with that. We do it all the time. This matter is not about an apology. So whether it is this sitting or the next sitting, listen, I could apologize every sitting. If you want for the next 20 sittings, I'll apologize. This is about constitutional rights. You see, Madam Speaker, I want a quote from October 10th, 2018, the fateful day of all this business. Everybody only care now about that is why Snake have some lead for you. That's why everybody talking about, because it's a subject. What is the run-up? Before that ball was delivered, Karenese, what was the run-up like? Anybody know the run-up before the ball was delivered? Let me read from the Hansard, Madam Speaker.
Jeez. I don't know that the run-up is part of this. Sometimes we have some echoes. Well, it can't be echo because not echoing me. Okay, but we have some underlying currents that sometimes I wish I just don't hear it. Member for Oropuchis, we are dealing with what is the subject of the report. Okay? Please.
Madam Speaker, on October 10, 2018, the member for Diego Martin Northeast was on his legs. And if I can just read, he was addressing you, Madam Speaker. Member for Diego Martin Northeast, there's a particular word I'd like you to withdraw, that particular word, and please continue. That was the speaker. The member for Diego Martin Northeast had this to say, "Oh, certainly, Madam Speaker, I will withdraw the word lies." According to Hansard, Mr. Hines said, "Just say Roodal Moonilal." Let me repeat that. So, the speaker says, member for Diego Martin Northeast.
Member for Naparima, you want to interject? Okay.
Madam Speaker, the member for Diego Martin Northeast said, "Oh, certainly, Madam Speaker," responding to you, "I will withdraw the word lies." Mr. Hines said, "Just say Roodal Moonilal." Madam Speaker, that was a short run-up to that exchange. I never wanted an apology, Madam Speaker.
I was just going to ask you in terms of...
I don't need an apology, ma'am.
I was just going to ask you in terms of what we debated, to tie that in quickly, because I don't remember that being raised in any way. All right? And while I'm on my legs, your original 30 minutes, you're entitled to 15 more.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I put that on the record. Madam Speaker, the report, so I'm debunking this mischief about the member for Oropuchis declined the opportunity to be heard. There was one meeting I attended, I waited an hour and a half to be called, I waited peacefully. Second meeting, Madam Speaker, that you called, Madam Speaker, we were in San Fernando, an undertaking was given by the committee. There was no need for me to come to Port of Spain. Third meeting, Madam Speaker, both my lawyers were detained at the police station, and Madam Speaker, it was an understanding we had that a junior lawyer would go at the court to do something, Madam Speaker. I think the Parliament was aware of that. Madam Speaker, at the meeting you had, the fourth or final meeting as the case may be, I wrote and said I was not available today. Today don't mean yesterday or tomorrow, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to go through the report very quickly before coming to another important point, Madam Speaker. Yeah, Madam Speaker, the member for Spain North St. Anne's West kept using language like a mad rush to go to court. And there was no need to go to court and to bring the separation. You know, there's a political lecture today about the separation of powers and the sanctity of the Parliament and the sanctity of this and that. And we're bringing the Parliament into disrepute by going elsewhere to raise matters. Madam Speaker, I have the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in my hands, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, this country has as its supreme law the Constitution. As much as the government may try, they have not destroyed the Constitution yet. Not yet, Madam Speaker. This is constitutional supremacy. Madam Speaker, while the... Sorry.
Member for Puch, Member for Aruka Maloney.
Sorry, Standing Order 48.6.
Okay, so Member for Puch is? If you could restate that in another way, I know that you are capable of. Yes?
Madam Speaker, notwithstanding attempts all over to undermine the Constitution, it has not been destroyed yet.
It is the same. It's the same issue. So I'm saying if you could find another way, if not, leave it alone.
Madam Speaker, I am grateful and thankful to God that the Constitution is in my hand. Madam Speaker, the member for Padarath North St. Anne's West, spoke, with excess volume about the Parliament having the right to conduct its proceedings and regulate its own proceedings and so on. Madam Speaker, that is true. That is true, but as the member himself recognized, I think this is his first Parliament he's serving, Madam Speaker. But the member fails or forgot to inform the House and the country that Parliament has a right to regulate its own proceedings subject to the provisions of this Constitution. Subject to the provisions of the Constitution. And the fundamental rights are the rights enshrined in the Constitution. So let me give it to you now. Subject to the provisions of the Constitution, each house may regulate its own procedures, but not in isolation by itself. And the Bill of Rights at 4 and 5, the fundamental rights, are enshrined in the Constitution. So you regulate your house subject to that. The matter at court now has to do, Madam Speaker, with the interpretation of the composition of the Committee of Privileges. Because when the standing orders changed, the numbers changed and the equation changed. Before it was a range, I believe 6 to 9, a range. Now that provides for 5 members plus the chairman, 6. So that there's an important matter to be interpreted by the court, to use the language for Diego Martin Northeast, that the court must interpret, Madam Speaker. The court must interpret now there isn't sub judice. Madam Speaker, the court has to interpret, Madam Speaker, the court has to interpret whether or not the composition of the Committee of Privileges violates the provisions of the Constitution, violates the rights of a citizen, in this case a member. So if I believe my rights are being violated by the misinterpretation of the standing order, and my constitutional rights are being undermined for a fair hearing before a tribunal, and so on, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have a right to go to court. I have a right. And let the Privy Council, whoever it may be, interpret whether if there's, in this new, people don't understand the standing orders changed. I was a member of the committee that changed the standing orders. And in the new standing orders, it provides for 5 + 1, 6, not 7, 8, and 9. So if you change members, Madam Speaker, you bring in people, you cannot say I bring in you as a temp, and you are the temp, but the person who is there, he or she just step aside. They're still a member. Madam Speaker, the Supreme Court, if you have 10 justices, Court of Appeal justices, one recuse himself, what do? Bring in somebody else? Madam Speaker, the issue has to be interpreted by the court. The court must adjudicate on this. The court is not there to adjudicate on the apology, whether it's on this sitting, next sitting, or the next 25 sittings. The court is there to adjudicate on an interpretation as to whether or not the constitutional rights of a citizen has been violated by a misinterpretation of the standing order, which is subject to the Constitution. Yeah, Madam Speaker, the member for Padarath North as well raised issues related, of course, to why the need for a constitutional action. But Madam Speaker, San Fernando East, advised by him, went for a constitutional action.
Yes.
Madam Speaker.
Integrity Commission.
Madam Speaker, my right to go to the court to seek protection was fortified by Diego Martin West.
Right to be heard.
When he faced a situation where he believed the Integrity Commission acted unfairly to him by refusing him natural justice, he went to the High Court. Madam Speaker, if I believe that the Committee of Privileges treated me unfairly, undermined my constitutional rights, I have a right to go to the High Court. which according to Diego Martin East was his right to. Madam Speaker, so the matter is a matter of the Constitution, and I wanted to say that not only for persons here, but outside, Madam Speaker, because this is not a matter for apology, or not apology and apologize. As I said, I am sorry if the member felt I offended him by threatening him. If I said Snake have lead for you, I didn't say I have lead for him. I didn't say I pay Snake to have lead for him, Madam Speaker. I didn't say that at all. In fact, you could interpret that as I gave him a good warning. I alerted him of imminent danger. You should have been thankful, Madam Speaker. I may have alerted him in the event. I never said I had something for him or I paid somebody. So if the member felt there was a threat to his life and limb and so on, if the member felt there was a threat to his life and limb, how much time you want? 10 seconds? Please. Madam Speaker, look at the good faith.
Yeah. I can also interpret it to mean that he had a conversation with Snake, and Snake told him that.
Madam Speaker, let me alert Lavalton West that the only snake I know is in a children game named the Buffalo. The Buffalo. Yeah, snakes and ladders. Yeah, Madam Speaker, there's a children game called Gruffalo, and a snake is involved in that. There's snakes and ladder, and you have that. I know no other snake. Over the years, we heard of snake in the Balize and so on, but I know nothing of that. So, my friend from Lavantel West, he knows better, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so I've said before, I was always available to the committee. When you had your meetings, on that one occasion when the sitting of the Parliament was taking place, the Senate, it was not convenient, Madam Speaker. So I did not take any tactic to delay. You know, Madam Speaker, I was thinking of an outcome that would have worked well. If the committee had just continued for a week or so, and the matter was ruled on that we could not have injunctive relief, you know, you could call me anytime. I would appear, and I would spend hours with you, helping you put in my case and so on, Madam Speaker. I would have done that immediately. Madam Speaker, so they say I didn't avail myself and so on. Madam Speaker, we are also told in the minority report, I just wanted to focus quickly on that. Madam Speaker, I personally, with these years of experience in this House, 18 years, I have never read a minority report like this in my life. Never. I've never read such a crushing, damning indictment on a committee as I've read in this committee. Normally, you would write that you don't agree with the policy, you don't agree with the process, and so on, and the policy is wrong, we disagree with that. Madam Speaker, the writers, because this thing about apologizing is, in boxing terms, is a split decision. They got a split decision. So three or four said apologize, 2 said don't think of it. Remember, Mr. Indar Singh and Mr. Padarath, both members of the committee, had very, very forceful language in this minority report, Madam Speaker. And I quote, "At all material times, we both felt as members of this committee that critical information was withheld that could have assisted us in having a better understanding of the involvement of the High Court." How could somebody write this? Madam Speaker, this is an indictment on the chairman of that committee and the committee as a whole, that critical information was withheld. The committee failed to allow due process and natural justice. Madam Speaker, the chair of the committee demonstrated at all material times, from the time the meeting starts and so on, to the conclusion, a total disregard for the law and the jurisdiction of the court. The conduct of the proceedings were designed to steal a march on the member for Arapuchis. The conduct of the proceedings demonstrated a clear disregard for the High Court. Madam Speaker, when you read something like this, it's chilling, eh? It's chilling. To read this from even a minority context, that you would put on writing, Madam Speaker, put in writing, Madam Speaker, words to the effect that democracy and the rule of law were undermined by a committee of privileges that is there to uphold the rule of law. Madam Speaker, so, Madam Speaker, the member for San Fernando East, who gave us a revelation today that he's a lawyer, want to hear apology. Madam Speaker, I know the time is coming to an end, so once again, I want to say, for the record, any other major
1 minute
issue? Madam Speaker, just looking through my notes for the member for San Fernando East, and there'd be nothing to respond to. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say in closing that without, Madam Speaker, without prejudice to the proceedings at the court, which could well render this entire thing inconsequential, without prejudice to any proceedings of the court, if the member for Laventille West believe that anything I say or I said threatened him in any way, his health, his strength, his limb, his locks, and his life, I unreservedly apologize. That is not the objective, Madam Speaker. But by the same token, the matter at court is a deeper and more serious issue. Madam Speaker, it is a deeper and more serious issue that will stay at the court. And Madam Speaker, I say this without prejudice. And Madam Speaker, I say today that the Parliament is not the supreme power in this land. It is the Constitution. And the guardian of the Constitution is the Supreme Court of Judicature. So, Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, as a member.
I recognize the member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's.
Very much. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. Madam
As
Speaker,
a member of the Privileges Committee.
Member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's.
Very much. Madam Speaker, I'd like
in
to
fact,
start
this
the
is a
wrap-up.
kangaroo court here today.
Member for Cover South. I have said who I recognize. Member for Port of Spain.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I'd like to start the response by setting the record straight as usual. The member for Siparia, who, as usual, wasn't here at the start of the parliamentary sitting, sat down here a short while ago and was saying that we were cherry-picking the sections from the Constitution, Madam Speaker, as the Hansard would reflect, at the outset of my contribution to this motion, I quoted in full, and I shall quote again, the premise of Section 56(1). Subject to the provisions of this Constitution, each House may regulate its own procedure. We started with that. So, as usual, the members for Siparia and Naparima, screaming and shouting but not contributing, try to mislead the population from their seats, and I've corrected it as usual. So, Madam... Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, and that sets out the whole premise of this debate. I've listened to the member for Urupuch East. Everybody was forced to listen to the screaming, which is usual, high levels, decibel levels of the member for Princestown, a newly minted law student with the typical textbook approach of screaming natural justice, due process, fair hearing. They believe by continuing to repeat these, they believe by continuing to scream and say certain catchphrases, it takes them somewhere. Madam Speaker, I would like to say that as a member of this House and as a member who participated on your Committee of Privileges, it was very shameful to hear the member for Princestown repeatedly attack you as chairman and as speaker in the job that you conducted.
Madam, 48-6, everything that I said was true and happened in the committee.
You know, I think everybody here, whether their first term as a parliamentarian and so on, we're here long enough to understand the rules. All right? And the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, is currently on his legs. He's making his contribution. Unfortunately, he's winding up, so there's no right of reply by anybody else. And I hope members will respect that. If you want to make an interjection, you ask the member to give way. If not, you can't shut across the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So, Madam...
Excuse me. You can't sit from there. I've told you repeatedly. You can't sit from there and ask me questions. I've told you that repeatedly.
So, Madam Speaker, thank you. So again, before I was rudely interrupted by the most obnoxious behavior on the other side, Madam Speaker, as a member of the committee who was present at all of the sittings of the committee, I refute all that was said about Madam Speaker's behavior. It has become a most disturbing trend that they attempt to misinform at every step of the way and to just continuously misrepresent and be total strangers of the truth. I refute everything that Princess Tong said, Madam Speaker.
We now suspend for tea. We resume at 5 p.m.